Chapter 2033. There were too many theories about the origin of this world, and Jiang Tian did not want to delve too deeply into it. However, it was inevitable that he would feel a little emotional when he revisited this place. In his previous life, he had explored this place many times. His friends had fallen, he had also gained a lot, he had been betrayed, and he had also been helped by cultivators he had met by chance. Don't be too rash. Remember to support each other and don't stray too far away from the other sex teams. If you are alone and encounter a large demonic beast, even a sage will not be able to save you. In the team, there were often elders of the large sects and imperial advisors who reminded them like this. They were very cautious. Many sects and countries knew their limits. Although there were coveted treasures and elixirs in the Great Critical Canyon, it was still extremely dangerous. There were a large number of demonic beasts and even demons. Moreover, the deeper they went, the stronger the cultivation of the demon soldiers. Some demon commanders were even stronger than sages. In fact, Jiang Tian knew that when the two worlds overlapped, not only did the human race use this area as an exploration ground, but the demon race also used this area as a hunting ground. In the long river of history, many cultivators who entered this place had fallen. Among them, there were many soul formation stage powerhouses and even a few sages. Therefore, they had learned their lesson and no longer took risks. Instead, they worked together as a team and even discussed the route they would take. Jiang Tian had also studied their route and there was not much of a problem. Therefore, he decided to hitch a ride and follow the Luoying sex team. Rumble. In the mountains, an earth-shattering demonic chi soared into the sky. A demonic beast appeared. It had 3 heads and 6 arms. Its fangs were dense and its body was covered in scales. It was extremely heavy as if it was cast from black iron. It rushed towards the Luoying sect's flying boat with a gust of evil wind. The tragic killing aura filled the void as if it could freeze one's soul. Elder. Countless people took out their Dharma treasures and instantly fell into a bitter battle. They looked at Saint Qianma and exclaimed. When everyone faced a demonic beast, they felt a huge sense of discomfort. Many of their attacks were like clay oxen entering the sea and had no lethality at all. Once they were contaminated by the demonic chi, the Dharma treasures that they were proud of seemed to be imprisoned. They could not unleash 1/10 of their power. Saint Qianma took a step forward and opened her right hand. She slapped down without any ripples of mana. She won with pure physical strength. The vast power smashed down like a mountain, and the space below seemed to shrink like a piece of paper. The demonic beast was instantly torn apart, and blood gushed out like waves. Broken bones and flesh fell down like rocks. Saint Qianma is so strong. Everyone was sighing, and their spirits were lifted. Saint Qianma was like a Buddha made of precious gold. She was indestructible and invincible. Her power seemed to be limitless. Not bad. Even Jiang Tian nodded slightly. Saint Qianma didn't use her magic power and used her physical strength to kill the devils. This way, she wouldn't attract more devils. Many sects were doing the same. They tried their best to restrain their magic power fluctuations as they moved stealthily. As the group ventured deeper, casualties began to appear. Rumble. A demon general appeared. He was equivalent to a soul formation cultivator. He rode a nether demon horse and charged into a medium-sized sect with a halberd in his hand. The demon general had a strong physical body and was extremely powerful in close combat. His Dharma laws could corrupt and erode human Dharma laws, which was something that the cultivators on the continent couldn't compare to. He slashed out with his halberd and destroyed all the lives within 10 miles. The cultivators of that sect died like rain. Even though a few saints and soul formation overlords arrived right after, he immediately ran 1,000 miles away and retreated calmly. Even a soul formation grand cultivator died under his halberd. Everyone was terrified. At first, there was only one, but more and more demon generals appeared. They tore through the line of defense and attacked the exploration team. Every soul formation realm demon general would lead more than a dozen nascent soul realm demons. Some small and medium-sized sects began to suffer large-scale casualties. That's terrifying. The fiends are so cruel. They didn't leave a single one alive. I don't know if it's a wise choice to join this expedition in the canyon. People watched their friends die one after another, and some even had their sects destroyed. One could imagine the psychological impact it brought. But in a short period of time, there was also a lot of good news. Many sects and countries had gained a lot and felt the joy of the harvest. The sect master of the Flying Phoenix sect picked 1,000-year-old breeze pill fruit. There were cheers. This kind of pill fruit could be refined into a divine medicine that could extend one's life and break through the shackles of cultivation, extending one's lifespan by 3,000 years. The treasure-gathering sect joined forces with the other sects and countries and hunted down a soul formation demon beast for 3,000 miles. They shared its blood and demon seed. Of course, there were also sects and countries that killed demon beasts and obtained resources. The fiends couldn't eat it directly, but after purifying it with special methods, it had unexpected benefits for their cultivation. The Chishan sect dug 100,000 feet into a demon ridge and found a piece of Emperor Wen iron that weighed 10,000 kilograms. There were also sects that obtained a piece of Great Dao treasure metal that could be used to refine Dao weapons. It was very rare and priceless. That wasn't much. In fact, this space fragment used to be the human-demon battlefield. Countless grand cultivators of the fiend race and the demon race had died here countless years ago. Of course, there were also many Dharma treasure fragments and remains. These things were even more precious. Fragments of saint weapons, defensive treasures, Taoist armor and battle boots, spiritual pills and precious medicines, beast bones and Dao marrow. Everyone had different gains, more or less. These gains made everyone's fear of retreating dissipate by more than half. Everyone's spirits were lifted and their minds were firm. At this moment, the critical canyon had become a feast. Not only for the human cultivators of the Saint Origin world, but also for the fiend race. The fiend race had also begun to wipe out the human race and counterattack each other. The smell of blood filled the air and filled the air. Shouts and roars rose and fell one after another. From time to time, there would be good news of finding treasures, but there would also be bad news that stimulated people's nerves. However, sacred grounds, divine sects, and other powerful countries were often invincible due to their strength. Their gains were enough to make many forces jealous. For example, the Ancient Medicine Palace, Luoyang sect, Nine Mysteries sect, Heavenly Luo sect, Thunderyang sect and Black Moon Empire. The Yachang Emperor killed a half-saint multi-eyed golden-scaled demon beast. On the early morning of the 5th day, an exciting piece of news arrived, which made the entire human exploration team burst into cheers. The eyes of this demon beast could be refined into a saint weapon. It could interfere with the opponent's mind and was very lethal. A half-saint multi-eyed golden-scaled demon beast. Even an ancient saint would have a hard time dealing with it. The Yachang Emperor killed it alone. Countless cultivators gasped when they heard this, and they were extremely shocked and moved. The cavalry led by the Yachang Emperor completed the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation. They trapped the demon beast for 3 days and 3 nights and finally killed it. A cultivator who witnessed it told the truth. A half-saint demonic beast. Even a saint would have a slim chance of winning against it. They would have to be cautious and even avoid it. After all, the Yachang Emperor was a new emperor who had just reached the half-saint realm. It was really admirable that he could achieve such a result. Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation. Everyone was moved when they heard the news. Especially Mou, Lin Yang and the others from the Eastern Empire. They had mixed feelings. This formation was known as the formation that protected the Black Moon Empire. It was created by the founder of the empire. In the long history of the empire, it had shown extraordinary splendor and killed 3 saints. It also made the Eastern Empire suffer a lot. However, 1,000 years ago, this formation was lost because of the Civil War. It had been lost for many years and could not be rearranged. Unexpectedly, the Yachang Emperor and the Iron Hand Saint had restored it. Chapter 2034. Yen Beifei entered an ancient cave by chance and found a piece of green cloud jade mountain copper. It's a great Dao treasure metal and can be used to forge a sacred weapon. More cries of surprise rang out, filled with envy. He's so lucky. I'm afraid that Yen Beifei will be rewarded by the sect leader when he returns. Yeah, after all, a sacred weapon material is too rare. There's no market for it. Even a mountain of high-grade crystals can't be exchanged for it. You can't be envious. He dared to enter the dangerous area. There are many demonic beasts in that ancient cave. Hearing such good news, everyone was so jealous that their eyes were bloodshot. There were even people who were brave enough to enter the dangerous area. However, they didn't have the strength and died. Great Dao treasure metal contained natural Great Dao patterns and was extremely powerful. Once a sacred weapon was used, its power would increase by several times and activate the corresponding Great Dao. It was said that this piece of Great Dao treasure metal contained the Great Dao patterns of cloud and mountain. It was extremely rare to be able to activate these two Great Daos. Elder, sect leader, I heard that an elder from the ancient medicine hall found 100,000-year-old silver-rich grass. However, it was eaten by a toad. In the Luing sect's flying ship, a disciple received the news and reported it to Lien Huahun and Saint Qianma. 100,000-year-old silver-rich grass. Lien Huahun and Saint Qianma were moved and looked at each other. In the Saint Origin world, the Luing sect, which specialized in wood-type cultivation techniques, was the most profound in the study of spiritual herbs and plants other than the ancient medicine hall. This grass was a priceless treasure. With other precious herbs, it could be used to refine a sacred pill that could help a void return sage break through 2 or 3 levels. What kind of toad is it? Saint Qianma asked. It's completely red and extremely fast. It can spit out demonic flames. I heard that many powerful experts were present, but they couldn't catch it. The disciple hurriedly replied. Fire speed vermilion toad. Jiang Tian's eyes narrowed. He recalled many details about this toad. This toad wasn't conspicuous, but it was a true treasure. It could only live in places with abundant immortal qi and eat supreme-grade spiritual herbs as its food. The toad meat on its body contained endless spirit qi and could help it break through several levels. Even a divine-grade nascent soul cultivator could use this to break through, let alone ordinary cultivators. Normal return to void stage saints might not even be able to withstand the effects of the toad crackers and their bodies would explode. It could be said that the so-called priceless silver-rich grass was like a weed in comparison. Although Saint Qianma and Lien Huahun did not know the origins of this toad, they knew that the silver-rich grass was priceless. That fiery red toad probably hasn't digested the silver-rich grass yet. If we catch the toad and peel open its stomach, we might be able to find the grass. Follow the original team and search for the fiery red toad. Zhong Nu and I will drive the flying boat. Saint Qianma said in a deep voice. This expedition was not only to search for treasures, but also to train the disciples. The path of cultivation had always been bumpy. How could a flower in a greenhouse withstand the wind and rain and grow into a towering tree? Many disciples agreed. Remember, you can't be more than 5,000 kilometers away from the flying boat. If there is any danger, call for help immediately. Saint Qianma gave a few instructions before letting everyone leave. This time, I'm bringing Mr. Jiang along. Huang Linger glanced at her 2 teammates and said softly. Senior Sister Ling, why are you bringing him along? Isn't he a burden? Her 2 teammates were instantly reluctant. In an expedition, the advantage of mortals was that they did not have any nomological fluctuations and would not be counterattacked by the demonic nomological laws. They would not alarm demon beasts and could carry out some sneak attack missions. However, they were already deep in the hinterland and demon beasts and demon generals were everywhere. They could devour mortals in a single bite. What was the point of bringing Jiang Tian along? Mr. Jiang has explored this place many times and is experienced. Huang Linger persuaded. Of course, I won't force you guys. If you guys don't agree, you can follow other teams. Alright, I'll join other teams. A team member named Huang Liang chose to leave immediately. It was not difficult to join other teams. With more members, the strength of the team would naturally increase as well. Their team leader had no reason to refuse. I'll follow Junior Sister Ling. The other cultivator, Sima too, chuckled. Of course, he looked down on Jiang Tian. However, he felt that Huang Liang's choice was simply brainless. This old man is indeed a burden. However, if he is really trapped by demons and demonic creatures and is in danger, you can just sit and watch him die. He can't be a burden to you, right? He can even be a meat shield. Sima too glanced at Jiang Tian with contempt. Soon, many cultivators entered small flying boats. The small flying boats left the main body and flew in all directions to search for the flaming scarlet toad according to the previous information. Chase towards the east. Jiang Tian glanced at the map and suddenly said in a deep voice. All right. Huang Linger immediately steered the flying boat and flew towards the east. Junior sister Ling, something's not right. According to its trajectory, it should be heading towards the west. Sima Tu's hair was white and he was old and steady. Seeing this, he was also puzzled. He was an elite disciple of Saint Qianma. He was not a personal disciple and only received guidance once or twice a year. Although he was an elite, he was not that elite. He had been a disciple of Saint Qianma for many years and his cultivation was still at the nascent soul realm. However, after experiencing so many storms, he still had some experience and knowledge. Its nest is in the east, Jiang Tian smiled without batting an eyelid. The flaming scarlet toad's intelligence was not high. Right now, the entire expedition team was searching for it. Driven by its instincts, it would definitely run towards the safest place, its nest. Foo-foo. Sima too laughed in disdain. However, he did not insist and had an indifferent attitude. He was an old fox. He did not participate in this operation to train himself or to gain some benefits. Under the premise of ensuring his safety, wouldn't it be great to slack off and accumulate some merit points for the sect? Under Jiang Tian's command, the small flying boat streaked across the sky like a meteor. Based on the subtle traces left behind by the flaming scarlet toad, he knew that they were getting closer. Jiang Tian did not want to use this flaming scarlet toad as a resource to break through to the soul formation realm. However, he could refine it into a divine elixir after he reached the soul formation realm and it would not be a problem for him to break through 1 or 2 small levels. Jiang Tian wanted to catch this toad wholeheartedly. However, at this juncture, trouble came knocking on his door. A few hundred kilometers away from its nest. Suddenly, a group of cultivators arrived on their swords. Instantly, they split up and surrounded the flying boat. There were dozens of cultivators, and it could be said that they surrounded the flying boat so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. It's the Heaven Net Sword formation of Heaven Luo sect. When they saw the group of cultivators attacking, many nearby cultivators revealed nervous expressions. It's Yen Beifei of Heaven Luo sect. Immediately after, when everyone saw Yen Beifei in the lead flying towards the flying boat on his sword, their expressions changed and they discussed fervently. Everyone, I have some private matters to discuss with Fairy Huang Linger. Please make it easy for me. Yen Beifei had a smile on his face as he cupped his fists in a circle. He looked very handsome. To put it simply, I want you guys to scram. Also, if anyone dares to spread a single word about what happened today, I'll kill them without mercy. Behind Yen Beifei, a level 1 soul formation young man swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators arrogantly and sneered. The moment he said that, a ferocious aura surged out and spread in all directions, causing everyone's hearts to palpitate. The murderous aura sent chills down their spines. Chapter 2035. This is Yen Beifei's junior brother, Yangxi. He's very arrogant and ruthless. Once, because the cloud-stepping sect master looked at him, he single-handedly killed more than 300 people from the cloud-stepping sect. Blood flowed like a river. Not a single chicken or dog was spared. He's a living king of hell. We can't afford to offend him. Retreat, retreat. I heard that Huang Linger rejected Yen Beifei's marriage proposal. Now that she's been stopped, I'm afraid she's in trouble. Immediately, all the surrounding cultivators were frightened to the point that their hearts went cold. They fled in all directions like stray dogs, not daring to get into trouble. After all, Yangzi and Yen Beifei were both young geniuses who had reached the soul formation stage. Moreover, they had powerful backers and were disciples of the Tian Luo sect's deputy sect master, Yen Nanxian. They were not people they could afford to offend. In the blink of an eye, all the cultivators had left. Yen Beifei slowly flew to the front of the flying boat and smiled. "Little sister Ling Er, it's a small world. I didn't think we'd meet again here." Huang Linger looked coldly at Yen Beifei and said indifferently, "Get out of the way. I'm not in the mood to chat with you." "Ha, little sister, you're fierce enough." Yen Beifei's face darkened, then he laughed. "But little sister, you might not know this, but I, Yen Beifei, like riding a fierce horse. Today, I'll grab your braid and whip the horse." Beside him, Sima too was so scared that his face turned pale and he trembled. "Fairy Ling Er, if you really can't do it, just give in. He's a soul formation genius and a holy god. His strength is equivalent to a normal half-sage. You won't lose out." Transmission Dharma artifacts and spiritual sense transmissions had all been cut off by their formation treasures. Yen Beifei was clearly trying to use force. However, Yen Beifei was also afraid of Lien Huahun and the Luing sect behind Huang Linger. After all, one had to look at the master before beating a dog. Moreover, Huang Linger was Lien Huahun's direct disciple. Therefore, Yen Beifei would not let the news spread. After getting intimate with her, he would definitely kill everyone, including himself. Huang Linger ignored him. Instead, she looked at Yen Beifei mockingly. "Not only are you ugly, but your heart is ugly as well. You are so ugly." "Ha!" Yen Beifei was so angry that he laughed. He gritted his teeth and said, "What a sharp-tongued girl. Since you're so good at talking, I'll let you use your mouth to serve me later." Skylark smiled mischievously and said, "That's right. Senior brother, you can take your time chatting with your little lover. I'll take the brothers outside to keep watch for you." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the dozens of disciples scattered. "Woman, come into my arms." Yen Beifei chuckled and extended his right hand towards Huang Linger. Rumble! A translucent, jade-like hand condensed in the air. It was over 10 meters wide, and it did not seem to be made of flesh and blood. Instead, it seemed to be completely composed of the laws and the Grand Tao. It was extremely dense and vast, and it seemed to blot out the sun. It completely enveloped Jiang Tian, Huang Linger, and Sima Tuesday, Heaven's net palm. "Fairy Linger, just give in. What's more important than your life?" Sima Tu was so scared that he was about to cry. He tried to persuade her again. "Yen Beifei, you're courting death. What did your father teach you? A male dog? You're in heat everywhere." Huang Linger's face was cold and she did not speak. However, Jiang Tian sneered and narrowed his eyes at Yen Beifei. "Who told you to speak nonsense? You're just a servant. What right do you have to speak?" Seeing this, Sima Tu's heart was filled with despair. He wanted nothing more than to cover Jiang Tian's mouth. Yen Beifei was enraged. He laughed sinisterly. "Ha, I didn't expect a servant disciple to be so arrogant and dare to provoke me. I'm going to tear you to pieces. It's over. I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a stupid teammate." Sima Tu was pounding his chest and stamping his feet. He suddenly felt that Huang Liang, who had left the team earlier, was extremely wise. This odd job worker surnamed Jiang was not simply a burden. He was clearly a star of misfortune. When the giant palm was less than 100 meters away from the three of them, Sima Tu was in despair. He wanted to close his eyes to relieve the terrifying pressure and fear. Suddenly, he saw a dazzling light shoot out from the bow of the flying boat. That light was a blade light. It was extremely sharp and dazzling, like a bolt of lightning that pierced through the heavens and earth. Yen Beifei let out a miserable cry. The heaven's net palm, which was extremely tough and solid and could block the attacks of Dao soldiers, was cut in half at the wrist. Countless drops of divine blood splattered, dyeing the earth and sky red. Jiang Tian stepped out from where the blade light rose. He sneered and said, "How dare you blaspheme my woman? How is this possible?" At that moment, be it Yen Beifei or Sima Tu, All of them were dumbfounded. Their gazes of disbelief were focused on Jiang Tian at the same time. Jiang Tian's initially hunched back straightened suddenly. Instantly, he became as majestic as a mountain. His head of white hair turned black, leaving only 2 streaks of white on his temples. However, it made him look even more gloomy and profound. His initially murky eyes became clear and sharp instantly. His aura was oppressive. In an instant, he turned from an ordinary middle-aged man into a young man who stood proudly like a true god that had descended to the world. So, it's a big shot who hid his strength. Sima Tu's eyeballs almost popped out in disbelief. In reality, there were too many cultivators who hid their trump cards and cultivation levels. It was not surprising at all. Sima Tu was also experienced and could more or less tell. However, it was definitely the first time he had seen someone like Jiang Tian who was completely like an ordinary person with both body and spirit. There were no traces of a cultivator at all. Damn it! How dare an ant like you injure me? Yan Beifei was completely enraged. He did not use his full strength earlier on. It was merely a casual attack from his Dharma power. It was merely a golden core dermic art. However, Jiang Tian's saber swept through the heavens and destroyed his Dharma power. For a paragon like him, this was a huge humiliation. A mere servant with a mere nascent soul cultivation. How could he injure me if he didn't rely on a Dao weapon? Yan Beifei's gaze landed on Jiang Tian's hands. When he saw that the latter was wielding a black saber, he could not help but reveal a look of disdain. The saber was black and oddly shaped like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Layers of scales shone on it. It was forged countless times. So, it's a Dao weapon. He didn't injure Yan Beifei with his own strength? Sima Tu was enlightened. However, even if Jiang Tian relied on a Dao weapon to injure him, Sima Tu was still shocked by his cultivation and guts. One had to be at the nascent soul realm to be able to use a Dao weapon. Furthermore, this lad was way too daring. Sima Tu knew that even if he carried a Dao weapon, he would not dare to resist at all. After all, the suppression of one's cultivation was no joke. Whoosh! Jiang Tian did not even wait for Yan Beifei to attack. His body swayed and he traversed dozens of miles in a flash, arriving in front of Yan Beifei. His movement technique was unbelievably fast. What? Yan Beifei was shocked. Even the pores on Jiang Tian's face could be seen clearly. His gaze was cold and emotionless. He had never seen a nascent soul cultivator who was so fast in his life. He had completely ignored the existence of space. Chapter 2036. Could it be that this kid has a celestial-grade nascent soul? Yan Beifei instantly realized that he had met the strongest opponent in his life. The vigilance in his heart instantly soared to the extreme, and his potential was stimulated to the limit. Kill! With a furious roar, Yan Beifei's eyes widened as he unleashed all his cultivation. Boom! His divine treasures rumbled, and the god in his body opened his eyes, which shone like giant lamps. His aura rose steadily until it reached the 3rd level of the soul formation realm. Countless sage-grade laws and great Daos appeared around him, turning into attacks that blasted toward Jiang Tian. He stepped into the void, and his body swayed like a fish in the water or an eagle in the sky. He used a physical technique to dodge Jiang Tian's attack. At the same time, a flying sword flew out of his storage ring and pierced through the air toward Jiang Tian's spirit embryo. His Taoist robes fluttered, and his hairpin, waist token, thumb ring, bracelet, and other protective Dharma treasures shone brightly. Light filled the sky, and in an instant, 13 layers of protective shields were formed. Yan Beifei's cultivation was very solid, and he had rich combat experience. His reaction was both offensive and defensive, which dazzled Sima Tuesday. He sighed. Fellow Taoist Jiang is also a talent, but the opponent he met today is too strong. He must be killed in one strike. There can't be a second strike. Even Huang Linger was sweating for Jiang Tian, and her gaze was extremely nervous. Although she had heard of Jiang Tian's deeds in the Eastern Empire, his valiant battle record, and his fierce reputation, she had never seen it with her own eyes. Moreover, what Jiang Tian wanted to do now was to kill in one strike. After all, Skylark and the others were not far away. Once Yen Beifei sent out a message, a large number of Tian Luo Sect's reinforcements would immediately arrive. Jiang Tian's plan to hide his cultivation and identity would definitely be exposed. In fact, she was worrying too much. Jiang Tian's mysterious art of deceiving heaven and earth had already reached an unimaginable level, and he had already isolated everything here. "You're just an ant." Jiang Tian snorted. He did not even use the strange knife in his hand. He just casually pointed at Yen Beifei's chest and divine treasures. A beam of light intertwined with darkness and brightness shot out in an instant. The chaos was mixed with countless rays of true thunder that could destroy all things. It was full of chaos, disorder, and vitality, but it also carried the overbearing power of the god of destruction. Hongming's god-slaying finger. This was a technique that could only be mastered after reaching the god realm. It was no longer a technique of the immortal realm. They were supreme, powerful, and capable of exterminating all gods. Jiang Tian was using it with a divine-grade nascent soul, but it was like a 3-year-old kid shooting randomly with a machine gun, yet he was still able to kill a tiger. Rumble! At that moment, this ray of light annihilated space and even stopped time. Countless mysterious runes were engraved on it, and they revolved around it. Divine lightning with green radiance appeared out of nowhere, and like the fingers of an ancient god, it easily pierced through the 13 layers of protective light shields, corporeal body, and divine treasures to reach the god. After that, under Yen Beifei's roar of disbelief, the god's eyes suddenly dimmed. A hole appeared in his chest. With that hole as the core, cracks spread out like a spider web. In an instant, it covered the entire god and his divine treasures. The next moment, Yen Beifei's entire body suddenly exploded. Divine blood splashed everywhere, dyeing the ground and the sky red. Even his divine soul did not manage to escape. It was crushed by Hongming's god-slaying finger easily. In the truest sense of the word, he had perished. Even before he died, Yen Beifei's eyes were still wide open and his face was filled with shock. He could not believe that such a servant could be so powerful. After killing Yen Beifei, Jiang Tian felt much better. After all, he was the son of his master in his previous life, and he often humiliated him. The Lin Yang family was destroyed and his hands were stained with blood. Jiang Tian hated him deeply. Now, he had finally taken his revenge. This is too terrifying. He killed a soul formation cultivator with one finger. Sima too was so scared that his whole body trembled. He looked at Jiang Tian with reverence, like a mortal seeing a real god. Jiang Tian was not in a hurry. His face was calm. If anyone asks, just say that a group of demonic beasts surrounded Yen Beifei and killed him. The demonic aura was too strong, and you could not see what the demonic beasts looked like. With that, he pointed again. The hell-suppressing demon god appeared in a flash and swallowed half of the severed limbs, leaving huge traces of battle on the ground. Its demonic laws lingered on the severed limbs. I understand. Sima too was so scared that his body trembled slightly. He bowed deeply, no longer having any arrogance or disrespect on his face. After doing all this, Jiang Tian stepped into the flying boat. His body bent down again, and he turned back into that decadent, stupid, and slow middle-aged mortal without any sharpness to speak of. What happened? Skylark had also sensed Yen Beifei's death through the extinguishing of the soul tablet and had rushed over as fast as lightning. My senior brother? Where is he? At this time, Skylark saw the blood all over the ground and had a bad premonition. She stared at everyone with gloomy eyes and asked bitterly, "Demon, there's a demon." Huanglinger was so scared that she was trembling. Her face was pale, which was in line with her newcomer exploring the canyon for the first time persona. Her acting skills are really skillful. She has reached the highest level without any traces of acting. Jiang Tian looked at all of this speechlessly. The cultivation world was really too good at training people. Huanglinger was such a simple and even cute person. However, after experiencing the trials and hardships here, she grew up quickly. Reporting to fellow Daoist Skylark, not long after you left, many demon generals drilled out from the ground and ate fellow Daoist Yen Bei Fei. Sima Tu's acting skills were also good. His face was pale and he was trembling. He even shed fake tears. How could it be so coincidental? We just left a few seconds ago, and demon generals appeared? How did my senior brother die? Tell me the truth. Skylark wasn't lacking in vigilance. He was angry, but he didn't dare to interrogate them. Flying swords with terrifying hostility surrounded Huang Ling and the others, as if they would be strangled to death in the next moment. He was killed by a demon general. Huang Linger said angrily, I have already sent a message to Saint Qianma. If you have the guts, kill me. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Skylark shouted angrily. Fellow Daoist Skylark, calm down. You don't think that we killed Yen Bei Fei, do you? Sima Tu said in a panic. Skylark didn't say anything as she stared at the two of them with gloomy eyes. Little Ku and Huang Linger are both at the nascent soul stage. Moreover, Huang Linger is at the 9th stage while Little Ku is only at the 8th stage. How could we have the ability to hurt Yen Bei Fei? Sima Tu said anxiously. Did he really die at the hands of a demon general? Skylark was helpless to the extreme. After all, what Skylark said made sense. It was impossible for them to rely on their cultivation. Even if they had a holy weapon in their hands, they wouldn't be able to use it. After all, they were only at the nascent soul stage. I'm too unlucky. He was really depressed to the extreme and could only quickly report it to his master, Yen Nanxian. After all, he was with Yen Bei Fei. Now that Yen Bei Fei was dead and he was fine, what would his master think? Even if he didn't have much responsibility. However, Yen Nanxian would definitely vent his anger on him. It was obvious that his future in the Tianluo sect had come to an end. A moment later, Saint Qianma and Lian Huahun arrived on a large flying ship. At this time, Skylark was still leading a group of fellow disciples to surround Huang Linger and protect the scene. They were all wearing sharp armor and were full of killing intent. Skylark, get out of my way. When Saint Qianma saw this, her face was filled with rage as she roared loudly. Chapter 2037. Senior, please. Skylark was very afraid of Saint Qianma. He was so scared that his body trembled. He cupped his fists and wanted to explain. Fuck your mother. Saint Qianma slapped Skylark to the ground, causing blood to spurt out of his nose and a few teeth to fly out. Saint Qianma suppressed her cultivation. Otherwise, Skylark would have turned into ashes with that slap. It wasn't very harmful to Skylark, but it was extremely insulting. Just a moment ago, he was high and mighty and ordered the other cultivators to leave like a god. But now, he was worse than a dog in front of a saint. Saint Qianma sternly shouted, You said that my disciple killed someone. Do you have evidence? Without the slightest evidence, you dare to force him to stay. What are you trying to do? Do you want to start a war with my sect? Is it because I have always been kind to others and have never used my cultivation to suppress others? Do you think that I am easy to bully? Do you think that my Luoying sect is easy to bully? Disciple doesn't dare. Skylark was so scared that he trembled. The other disciples were so scared that they all took a few steps back. At this moment, Yen Nanxian and Zhao Feifei, who had received the message, also arrived. Yen Nanxian looked at the bloodstains and broken limbs on the ground in horror and said sadly, What is going on? How did he die all of a sudden? Master, blame disciple for not protecting you well. Senior brother was besieged and killed by the demon generals. Disciple is in so much pain that I want to commit suicide to apologize to the world. Skylark wailed in grief. The other disciples also wiped their tears and showed the sadness they should feel. Pooh, my son. Yen Nanxian was so anxious that he directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body shook and he almost fell from the sky. Although cultivators had gone through hardships, the relationship between father and son was still difficult to break. It was a great sorrow for a white-haired person to send off a black-haired person. It was unbearable for anyone to feel like their heart was being cut by a knife. Master, if you are sad, then cry. Zhao Feifei's face was instantly filled with tears. She grew up in the sect and was childhood sweethearts with Yan Beifei. They had a deep relationship like siblings and lovers. That kind of emotional connection had long been inseparable, like Siamese twins. Now that her senior brother was dead, she felt as if her heart was being torn apart. She was in so much pain that she wished she was dead. But, my son. Yan Nanxian fell to the ground without a care for his image. He held the sand that was stained with blood and hit the ground with his head. He opened his mouth wide and wailed like a child who had lost his favorite toy. My son, Bei Fei, originally had the bearing of a sect master, but he actually died in the hands of a demon. Yan Nanxian howled miserably and roared towards the sky. Tears of blood rolled down his cheeks like a magical beast that had lost its cub. Once a cultivator reached the soul formation stage, their flesh and blood would contain their own laws and principles, which would allow them to be reborn from a single drop of blood. However, Yan Beifei's flesh and blood had already been contaminated by the demonic laws. Even his own laws had been destroyed. It was like an ordinary person who had been exposed to nuclear radiation. Even their genetic map and gene sequence had been changed. Naturally, they would not be able to replicate themselves. In other words, Yan Beifei had truly disappeared from this world. There was no possibility of resurrection. Senior Yan, the dead cannot be resurrected. My condolences. That's right, Brother Yan. Beifei died in the hands of the Devil Clan. We shouldn't wallow in grief and be unable to extricate ourselves. Instead, we should pull ourselves together and kill more devils. Only then can we appease his soul in heaven. Lian Huahun and the others all went forward to persuade him. It was not completely out of politeness or pretense. Instead, it was a form of grief. This world was very dangerous and constantly changing. Who knew if they would be the next to die? Ling, this has nothing to do with you. Don't feel burdened. Continue to look for that toad. However, Saint Qianmo ignored him. Her face was full of disdain. She was just short of saying that he deserved to die. Elder. Huang Linger bowed deeply and was about to leave. Wait. Suddenly, Yan Beifei stared at Huang Linger and said coldly, Senior, what can I do for you? Huang Linger's pretty face, which had just regained its color, turned pale again. She was trembling with fear. Her delicate posture caused Saint Qianmo to protect her. She looked at Yan Nanxian coldly and said, Ling, don't be afraid of him. I'm here. Yan Nanxian did not even look at Saint Qianmo. Instead, he continued to stare at Huang Linger. I'm watching you. Be careful. Don't let me catch your tail. Huang Linger's face turned serious. She looked at Yan Nanxian for a moment. Seeing that he had nothing else to say, she said, Senior, are you done? Can I go now? Go! Yan Nanxian gnashed his teeth as he glared at Huang Ling. After a dozen flicks of his fingers, he coldly shouted, Master, let me watch her. I'm willing to make up for my mistakes. If Senior Brother's death is related to this woman, I will definitely find evidence and kill her to comfort Senior Brother's soul in heaven. Skylark threw herself at Yan Nanxian's feet and said with a sobbing tone. Yan Nanxian looked down at Skylark. His eyes were cold as he said coldly, You're too useless. You can't even figure out who killed Beifei even though you're so close to him. What use do I have for you? Master, I'm sorry. Don't kill me. Skylark was so scared that her soul almost left her body. She flew backward like a meteor while begging for mercy frantically. Seniors, fellow Taoists, please help me put in a good word. However, before she could finish her words, Yan Nanxian pointed at her in the air and she let out a miserable scream. Looking at her chest, there was a terrifying bloody hole. Her heart was cold. Her divine treasure was pierced through, her god was obliterated, and her cultivation was destroyed. Ah, Master, you're so cruel. Skylark was stunned for a moment. A deep look of despair appeared on her face. Then she fell to the ground and cried out miserably. What a disgrace. If this old man was ruthless, you would have lost your dog life long ago. Yan Nanxian's face was cold as he ordered. None of you should pay attention to him. Leave him here and let him perish on his own. Sect Master. Many of the Tian Luo sect's disciples responded in unison. Their voices were trembling slightly. This punishment was even more terrifying than death. Leaving a person with no cultivation in a place full of demonic creatures. Death was indeed terrifying, but the process of waiting for death was even more terrifying. Master, no. Skylark screamed miserably as tears of blood flowed from her eyes. Her miserable screams made one's hair stand on end. However, not many people sympathized with her. This person had always liked to bully others with his master's power. He relied on Yan Nanxian's name to bully the kind and act tyrannically. It was only natural that she would suffer a backlash today. Zhao Feifei, take a few disciples and keep an eye on them. Yan Nanxian glanced coldly at Huang Linger. He didn't hide his suspicion of her. I understand. Zhao Feifei stared at Huang Linger and gritted her teeth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with murderous intent and her gaze was extremely cold. Chapter 2038. Lian Huahun was very indifferent towards this. She felt that Huang Linger was a troublemaker and did not care at all. Saint Qianma could only sigh softly and did not say anything else. Otherwise, she would be too protective. Every path had its own side. This is not your sect's territory. It's a public area. Can't you allow others to follow you? Huang Linger's expression did not change. She said goodbye to Lian Huahun and Saint Qianma and boarded the flying boat. They continued to fly towards the east in search of the flaming red frog. Zhao Feifei followed them on her sword. Behind her were a few fellow soul formation cultivators. They wanted to find evidence that Huang Linger was hiding her cultivation level. As long as Huang Linger's cultivation level was strong, they could explain Yan Beifei's sudden death. The murderer would be Huang Linger. After activating the shield restriction, Huang Linger looked at Zhang Tian and said worriedly, "This is troublesome. With her watching, you'll be exposed sooner or later. But if you attack, you'll also be exposed." Zhao Feifei should have activated the surveillance Dharma device so that she could transmit Zhang Tian and Huang Linger's every move to Yan Nanxian. In other words, once Zhang Tian was exposed, Zhang Tian would have to face Yan Nanxian, who was a half-saint, or the entire Tian Luo sect's experts. Thinking of this, Sima Tu's face was filled with fear. He said with a trembling voice, "This is troublesome. I'm afraid I'll have to die with you." Zhang Tian took out a green wine pot from his bosom and sipped a mouthful of fruit wine. He exhaled a breath with a sweet smell of wine and said lazily, "That's right. Don't worry. Sometimes, I don't have to do anything if I want someone to die. I've said that I've been to this area many times. I have the advantage of the terrain." He patted Sima Tu's shoulder and smiled. Sima Tu was skeptical. His expression was terrible and his heart was in a mess. He was in no mood to care about Zhang Tian. There seems to be human cultivators fighting in front? Sima Tu suddenly exclaimed. Let's go and take a look. Zhang Tian had long seen two factions facing each other in a valley. There were hundreds of cultivators on each side and the atmosphere was tense. Zhang Tian recognized one of them. It was Lin Yang and Fang Gouyu. There were already several corpses lying on the ground. The other side was the Qishan sect, one of the top 20 sects in the continent. Among them, a few forces mediated. Zhang Tian did not enter immediately. Instead, he landed on a mountain peak in the periphery. There were dozens of cultivators watching and discussing. What's going on? Why are they arguing? Hey! General Lin Yang led a team to hunt down a 5-colored ironback flying centipede. They had already surrounded it and beaten it half to death. They were about to capture it. At this moment, the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, suddenly appeared with a group of people and beheaded the centipede. Now, both sides are fighting over this centipede. 5-colored ironback flying centipede? This is a very rare demonic beast. It can concoct pills and refine weapons. It's priceless. No wonder they're fighting. In my opinion, the Qishan sect is too despicable. They're always scavenging. Previously, our sect caught a 4-tailed golden fur mouse. Damn it, we chased it for 300,000 miles. We were so tired that we vomited blood, and so was the golden fur mouse. In the end they snatched it away. That's right. The Qishan sect is known as a scavenger sect. They like to watch others fight to the death. They secretly pick up equipment. When our waterfall sect fought with Qingsong Fort last year, they also picked up a lot of treasures. Too shameless. Our blood scythe sect was also scavenged by them. Us too. For a moment, the entire place was filled with condemnation. It seemed that the Qishan sect had indeed angered everyone. In the field, the Zongzi of the Qishan sect, Su Jiahao, said without any shame. You just said that you beat this centipede half to death and took credit for it. Without you, I wouldn't have been able to kill it. I can also say that I met it half a year ago and beat it until it was on the verge of death. How can you be a human? You can't be too greedy and want to take advantage of everything. If you really have the ability, you should have killed it. Lin Yang was so angry that he vomited blood. He said coldly, twisting the truth and slandering others. Do you have any shame? If you hadn't suddenly attacked, we would have killed it in a matter of seconds. This time, I won't argue with you. I still have to continue scavenging, oh no, slaying demons and demons. Su Jiahao smiled coldly and said threateningly, but if you interfere with me again, I won't be polite. Forget it. Lin Yang, they have more people. We can't take advantage of them. Lin Yang was about to explode when Fang Goyu stopped him. However, although Lin Yang was angry, he also knew that Fang Goyu's words were not without reason. They did have many soul formation cultivators. He sighed, then pulled himself together and waved his hand. Let's go, let's continue. You want to fight with me? You're still too young. In this world, there's no treasure that I can't pick up, no waste that I can't pick up. Su Jiahao was so proud that he laughed with his hands on his hips. This was the sect's motto. They were not ashamed of the disgust and disdain around them. Instead, they were proud of it. Jiang Tian stood on the flying boat and narrowed his eyes as he slowly opened his mouth and said, Your Qishan sect is simply a nest of maggots and a swarm of flies. Seeing a bit of sweetness and a bit of feces, you all pounce on it. My grandfather, it's not enough for you to offend the Tianluo sect. Do you want to offend the Qishan sect? Beside him, Sima too was so scared that he almost fainted. Who is this? Who dares to offend the Qishan sect? Yes. Looking at his robe and his lack of cultivation, he should be a servant hired by the Luoying sect? Is he courting death? Not only him, but everyone present looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief, as if they were looking at a madman. Although the Luoying sect emphasized love and equality, and would probably protect a servant in this critical juncture. However, they could protect him for a while, but they couldn't protect him forever. When they got out of the canyon, wouldn't it be easy for them to find a chance to kill you? Huang Linger was also puzzled, but she immediately understood. Oh, I understand. Back then, Jiang Tian lived in the Eastern Empire for a period of time and was friends with Lin Yang and the others. She thought that Jiang Tian was trying to help his friends. However, it wasn't that simple. At this moment, Jiang Tian was trying to provoke more enemies. There were more uses later. Bastard, are you courting death? A little servant dares to provoke me. When Su Jiahao heard this, he immediately flew into a rage. He was often insulted, but this was the first time he had been insulted as badly as Jiang Tian. Bastard, don't talk nonsense. If you can kill your grandfather, you're capable. What's going on? If I'm your grandfather, wouldn't I be a fly too? Jiang Tian put his hands in his sleeves, like a street gangster, a idler in a village, so angry that he almost vomited blood. Kill him. Even if Saint Qianma asks, I'm in the right. A servant insulted me like this. If I don't kill him, should I wait? Su Jiahao shouted angrily and waved his hand, leading hundreds of cultivators towards Jiang Tian. Chapter 2039. Let's go! Jiang Tian retreated into the flying boat and shouted. Okay. Huang Linger seemed to have woken up from a dream and controlled the flying boat to run away. At this time, Zhao Feifei also caught up and asked, Su Zongzi, what's going on? Why did you— Damn it, this damn servant dares to scold me. He's going too far. Su Jiahao immediately gave a concise explanation and then asked, "What are you guys doing?" "This person is strange. Could it be that Beifei's death is related to him?" Zhao Feifei's attention was focused on Jiang Tian for the first time, and she frowned. Hearing the question, she came back to her senses and said, "Among the three of them, one of them might have killed my husband." "What?" Su Jiahao was shocked and then said, "Then we can't let them go." He immediately chased after them. 100 miles away, in a floating fortress, hundreds of nascent soul cultivators stood on their swords and guarded the entire sky. Their murderous aura was so dense that not even a fly could get past them. On the wall of the fortress, a man and a woman were strolling. The man was tall and mighty. He was wearing a dragon robe and a flat crown. He had sword-like eyebrows, starry eyes, a straight nose, and a square mouth. He was extremely handsome. Each and every one of his movements was full of discipline, unrestrained and domineering, as if he was a natural-born emperor. It was the Yachang Emperor. The woman next to him was wearing purple crystal armor. She had a graceful figure and exquisite curves, giving people a sense of fitness and strength. Especially her pair of long legs, they were even more eye-catching. It was Princess Mou. Mou, the East and Mou countries used to be at war in history, but that was because the mortal empires were plundered and exploited by the hidden sections. Resources were scarce and they had no choice but to fight among themselves. The Yachang Emperor spoke with confidence and assurance. But now, the empire has changed to a county system and is thriving. Its potential has been stimulated and it already has the capital to compete with the hidden sections. We should forget the disputes in history, put aside the disputes, and work together to fight against the hidden sects. Mou shook her head gently and smiled. The East Empire has been poor and weak for many years. It has just recovered and is now recuperating. It doesn't want to provoke any forces and only wants to develop itself. The Yachang Emperor chuckled. Mou, you're too childish. Do you think you can develop peacefully just because you want to? Ever since the reform of the prefectures and counties, the power of the secular empires had risen. They had already become a thorn in the side of the sects. Now we have to strike first to gain the upper hand. Mou smiled bitterly. This isn't something that I can decide alone. The entire Eastern royal family thinks the same way. The Yachang Emperor pondered for a while, but his gaze suddenly became gentle and affectionate. Mou, even if you don't have the heart to fight against the hidden sects, the alliance between our two countries is necessary. Alliance? Of course. Mou smiled. However, the two countries must reach a consensus in certain aspects. Otherwise, there will be no basis for an alliance. Mou, I still have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it or not. The Yachang Emperor smiled. You've always been an upright person. How can you be so sloppy? There's no harm in saying it. Mou didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In my opinion, the best alliance is a marriage alliance. If we become Dao companions, I'll definitely make you my empress and dote on you for the rest of your life. Emperor Yachang said affectionately. Let's not talk about this anymore. Mou shook her head gently, but her tone was very firm. For some reason, Jiang Tian's figure and that unscrupulous smile instantly appeared in her mind. Why? The Yachang Emperor's face was surprised, and immediately revealed a look of realization. Don't tell me you still miss that imperial advisor Xiqing? Let's not talk about this anymore. Why? The Yachang Emperor was very unwilling. He felt that Eastern Lu and the entire Eastern royal family, except for Mou, were all trash. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of imperial advisor Xiqing more than 10 years ago, suppressing the feudal lords, sweeping through the demon race, and reforming the county system, the Eastern Empire would have long collapsed. He had an idea. After marrying Mou, he would provoke her ambition bit by bit, get rid of Eastern Lu, and establish her as the empress. Then the Eastern Empire would also be his, and they could even merge into one. But is there a need to ask? Because you're too ugly. Suddenly, a voice filled with disdain could be heard coming from the distance. Eldest Princess Mou covered her mouth and laughed coquettishly, destroying the atmosphere. On the other hand, The Yachang Emperor was furious. Who dares to disturb my palace? Hunt him down. Immediately. The Yachang Emperor's guards, numbering more than 100 people, were basically above the nascent Soul Realm. There were even 3 Soul Formation Realm experts leading the way, and they chased after Jiang Tian's flying ship. You can't catch up. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The small flying ship was unleashed to the extreme, and the sound of it breaking through the air was ear-piercing. It streaked across the sky and shuttled between the mountains and steep ridges. What's going on? I don't know. Could it be that there's some treasure on that flying ship? Let's catch up and take a look. For a moment, the scene became incomparably spectacular, and a few more sects joined in the fun. Countless cultivators followed Jiang Tian, looking like a group of big cats chasing a mouse. Sima too was scared silly when he saw this scene. He felt that Jiang Tian was a scammer. Along the way, he courted death and provoked many people, and many forces chased after him frantically. The Yachang Emperor was just one of them. Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine gently and said unhurriedly, faster. Ling, go a little faster. You look like you're running for your life in a panic. Oh, you're wrong. What do you mean by look like? It's obviously him. Sima too wanted to cry but had no tears. He only felt that teaming up with Jiang Tian was the stupidest decision in his life. Yes, I understand. Huang Linger responded and controlled the flying ship, as if she was running for her life in a panic. She broke all the giant trees along the way and fell into the water. When she crossed the mountains and ridges, she even caused huge rocks to roll. She looked panicked and frightened. The way she hid and fled made the cultivators chasing after her even bolder. For a moment, it seemed that Jiang Tian was a rat crossing the street, and everyone could step on him. Kill! Stop that madman! For a moment, the sound of shouting and killing was earth-shattering, setting off monstrous waves. The chasing teams stretched for hundreds of miles, which was a magnificent sight. This was very rare in the history of exploring the Liminal Canyon. Because of the existence of the demon race, the forces on the continent were relatively united, so such a large-scale chase was extremely rare. In particular, hundreds and thousands of cultivators chasing after a small flying ship was even more strange. No way? The Qishan sect, the Tianluo sect, the Black Moon Empire, the Feiyun sect? So many forces are chasing after one person? Who is this person? How did he offend so many big shots? Does he want to die? He must be one of those death-seeking experts. When countless cultivators saw this scene, they were extremely shocked and discussed animatedly. None of them dared to believe it. If you don't stop, I'll kill you. Clang! One of the personal guards of the Yachang Emperor, a Soul Formation Realm cultivator, directly attacked Jiang Tian's flying ship. Where do you think you're going? Su Jiahao attacked brazenly. Immediately, many cultivators attacked. Dharma treasures and Dao weapons pierced the sky and flew toward the flying ship as if they were free. Kill them. Seeing this, Zhao Feifei also attacked. Originally, she wanted to collect evidence and confirm that Huang Linger was the murderer before killing her. Then, the Luoying sect had nothing to say. But now, Jiang Tian had offended so many people. If they attacked him together, the law would not be able to control the masses. Zhao Feifei didn't care whether Huang Linger was killed unjustly or not. As the saying goes, she would rather kill by mistake than let go. In an instant, it was as if Jiang Tian and Huang Linger had fallen into a life and death situation. Chapter 2040. Ask for help from Saint Qianma. Sima too screamed and his face turned pale. Don't panic. Jiang Tian was calm and composed. Under the guidance of Jiang Tian, Huang Linger controlled the flying boat agilely. The flying boat was like a butterfly, shuttling through all kinds of Dharma artifacts. Although it was dangerous, it was more frightening than dangerous. At least they didn't suffer any substantial damage. Charge in. Seeing that the time was ripe, Jiang Tian pushed Huang Linger aside, took over the rudder, and drove the flying boat into a no-man's land. No-man's land was a habitual name for the extremely dangerous area. This kind of place was extremely dangerous. The dharma of devils was very heavy. The divine sense and dharma power of the cultivators were restricted. A large number of soul formation realm fiends would appear. Generally speaking, the probability of human soul formation realm cultivators dying in this place was extremely high. Only saints had a chance to protect themselves. Now, seeing that the flying boat had plunged into the no man's land, the cultivators chasing behind were all stunned and stopped in their tracks. Let's go in too. Those nascent soul realm weaklings can go in. What are we afraid of? Seeing this, Su Jiahao was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he raised his arm and led the team in. Let's go in too. Zhao Feifei was even more suspicious of Huang Linger and Jiang Tian. She raised her eyebrows and shouted, "Whoosh whoosh whoosh." Many cultivators also stepped on their swords and entered. Are we not as good as a woman? The 3 soul formation realm cultivators, the leaders of the Yachang Emperor's guards, looked at each other and led the cavalry in. Rumble. The cavalry was like a dragon. The cold light shone on their iron clothes. They entered like a tornado with the momentum of a dragon. The royal guards of the Yachang Emperor have entered. The 3 soul formation realm cultivators are all experienced figures. We shouldn't be afraid. The few forces outside found that there were no fiends or fiend generals, so they immediately let down their guard. Their courage increased and they all rushed in. After entering the no man's land, Huang Linger immediately felt that her divine sense was greatly limited. It was less than 1/10 of the original. In reality, she was not the only one who was like this. Everyone was like this. However, Jiang Tian's soul-devouring soul consciousness was originally a demon soul consciousness, so it was even more beneficial. Its range of observation was instantly doubled, and it was even sharper. Even the slightest details could not escape his senses. Moreover, Jiang Tian drove the flying boat even faster than before. It was 10 times faster than before, and it was completely silent. Sima too was almost scared silly. Yes, he's using his own magic power to accelerate the entire flying boat. Sima too suddenly understood, but he was even more shocked. It was as if you saw a person running while carrying a motorcycle, but the person was running faster than the motorcycle. Silently, Jiang Tian shook off his pursuers and observed the terrain with a frown. Soon he entered a dense forest. These plants had obviously been demonized. The branches were grotesquely shaped, like the palms of demons. The bark was rugged, as if they had eyes that opened and closed. The most terrifying thing was that there were many devil fruits growing on them, which looked like skulls. Let's go down. Jiang Tian was the first to jump off the flying boat. He was neither fast nor slow, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. Those devil fruits opened their mouths and made a biting action. They stared viciously at the 3 of them and discussed with each other. "Tsk, someone's coming. Eat them. Don't panic. They have no taste and don't taste good raw. Get some devil fire and roast them until they're medium rare. Sprinkle some black devil chili and they'll be fragrant." Although they were just talking and did not launch any substantial attacks, Sima too, who saw it for the first time, was so scared that his legs went soft. "Brother Jiang, let's go back." "It's okay. These devil fruits can't hurt people at all." Jiang Tian smiled calmly. He raised his hand and chopped down with his saber, chopping off a devil fruit. "Humans are so scary. Quiet. He didn't notice us. Stop trembling." "Who's trembling?" Seeing this, the devil fruits immediately trembled in fear. They closed their eyes tightly and pretended to be ostriches. Jiang Tian crushed a devil fruit. The red and white jam emitted a pungent smell and splashed all over Huang Linger. This is so smelly." Huang Linger couldn't help but pout. She had an aggrieved look on her face like a little girl. "It's nothing. With this, we'll be safe. Then, we'll lure them into the tiger's den and attract their firepower for us." Jiang Tian took a few more devil fruits and crushed them. He smeared jam all over Sima too's body before he explained leisurely and smeared jam all over himself and Sima too's body. After everyone chased into this no man's land, they did not see Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. Su Jiahao could not help but say angrily, This old man is so evil. This rotten old man is too bad. His mouth is full of shit. Where is he hiding? Have you become a coward? After entering the no man's land, they did not see any demon generals or demonic creatures. For a moment, everyone was relieved. Since there are no demonic creatures in the no man's land, we'll find them and kill them even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Zhao Feifei's face was beautiful and her voice was cold. She looked as vicious as the bearded man. Bastard! Come out, you lowly servant. You're like an ant. How dare you insult our emperor? I'll tear you to pieces. Old man, you're just good at talking. Come out and fight with us if you have the guts. Why don't you dare to come out? Cowardly rats who only know how to hide in the dark are despicable and shameless. The rest of the cultivators were all cursing as they searched. At this moment, everyone saw Jiang Tian driving a flying boat and speeding towards them like a train. Fellow cultivators, run for your lives. A terrifying demonic beast is about to attack. Jiang Tian shouted. Do you think I'm scared? Childish. Su Jiahao glared and chased after him crazily with the cultivators of Qishan sect. Where do you think you're going? The Yechang Emperor's iron guards also chased after him like a swarm of bees. Don't let this old man escape. Stop him. Surround him. Shouts and roars were endless. All the major forces chased after him and pounced on him from all directions. This time, Jiang Tian's speed seemed to be a little slower. Soon, he was surrounded by these cultivators in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. Let's see where you can run to this time. Su Jiahao gritted his teeth. You're useless. You only have a stupid mouth. I'm going to cut off your lips and feed them to the dogs. Zhao Feifei's pretty face also seemed to be covered with 10,000 years of frost. She said coldly, Huang Ling, tell me the truth. Did you kill my husband? Tell me the truth and I'll leave your corpse intact. Fellow cultivator Zhao, give me some face. Long live the emperor. I want this old man's head. The 3 soul formation realm guards of the Yachang Emperor also said coldly. At this moment, all the cultivators present were very arrogant and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he was a lamb that could be slaughtered at any time. Zhao Feifei, I did kill Yan Beifei. Jiang Tian suddenly chuckled. How can you admit it? No matter how strong you are, you'll definitely die if they attack you together. At the side, Sima too was so scared that he almost fainted. Zhao Feifei's expression changed and endless anger surged in her eyes. She took out her Dharma treasure and was about to attack. Fellow cultivator, wait. Listen to me. Jiang Tian waved his hand unhurriedly. Alright. Let's see how you're going to deny it. Zhao Feifei was ready to attack. Jiang Tian smiled and said, I can understand that you want to avenge your husband. But don't kill Qingqing. What did you say? Zhao Feifei flew into a rage, but her heart was indeed somewhat vigilant. Since this person was able to kill Yan Beifei without a sound, he must be extremely powerful and unimaginable. I'm here. Do you think you can still turn the tables? Bastard, you'll pay with your life for my sons. At this moment, Yan Nanxian also rushed over. His eyes were filled with hatred and he wanted nothing more than to tear Jiang Tian apart. Senior Yan. Sect Master. We're relieved that you're here. When everyone saw that Yan Nanxian had arrived, they could not help but feel relieved. All of them looked respectful and cupped their fists. Chapter 2041. Yan Nanxian was a half-step void return cultivator and could be called a half-saint. In addition, there were more than a dozen soul formation cultivators present, which was equivalent to a void return saint. In their opinion, Jiang Tian's background was strange, but even if he was made of iron, how many nails could he crush? Sect leader Yen, this has nothing to do with me. Sima too was so scared that he sat on the ground wanting to cry. Yan Nanxian, if you insist on killing me, you will definitely die. Jiang Tian smiled calmly and said, That's right. Why don't you all just leave and keep your lives? Isn't it good to enjoy your next life? Yan Nanxian's face was full of mockery. Nameless scoundrel, playing tricks. You're about to die, but you're still so stubborn. With a swoosh, the long sword jumped out of the scabbard made of the silver-beard golden eye dragon skin and was about to fly toward Jiang Tian. Sigh. I'm just being nice. Actually, I do have a grudge with you that needs to be settled. But after thinking about it, I'll kill you myself another day. I don't want to borrow the hands of others to vent my hatred. But since you don't listen to me and insist on dying, I can only use your blood to dye this demonic land red. Jiang Tian shook his head and sighed, looking very helpless. Ha, an old man like you dares to boast so shamelessly. Su Jiahao looked up and laughed. This is the best joke I've heard this year. One of the Soul Formation guards of the Yachang Emperor also sneered. You're so stubborn. You're about to die, but you're still talking nonsense. Zhao Feifei's face was full of disdain. Cultivators were all pragmatic people. Compared to their lives, dignity and face were not worth mentioning. Yan Nanxian's face was livid. I don't want to talk nonsense with you anymore. That, he said coldly. He was about to release his flying sword. Suddenly, the huge mountain beneath their feet split apart, emitting a huge rumbling sound. Dust flew everywhere, and rubble shot through the air. With this loud noise, a vast wave of demonic qi filled the void. Demonic beast! A half-saint! Yan Nanxian was almost scared out of his wits. His face was pale and he was about to step on his sword and fly away. Suddenly, a huge palm shot out from the crack like lightning and grabbed Yan Nanxian like a whirlwind. Yan Nanxian was so shocked that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His precepts surged like a tide, and fragments of the great Tao shot out. The Dharma treasures on his body exploded one by one. However, it was useless. His magic power was corroded by the devil qi. Bam! Yan Nanxian was easily crushed, and fresh blood spurted out from the gaps between the giant fingers. Pieces of his internal organs poured out from his mouth, and his divine treasures were all shattered. He was already half dead. Rumble! A demonic beast the size of a giant mountain appeared in front of everyone. The demonic beast looked like a giant ape, but there were huge bone spikes protruding from its back. Each of the bone spikes was emitting a black demonic aura, and they pierced into the sky like peerless spears. Moreover, this monster ape had a pair of fleshy wings on its back. Its fascia was tough, and when it spread its wings, it covered the sky and covered the sun. There were also dark and murderous demonic laws that turned into iron chains that extended in all directions. They were as if they were real, and they made clanking sounds. Yan Nanxian could not resist at all in its hands. He could only desperately beg for mercy. Listening to his miserable howls and looking at his sorry appearance, Jiang Tian felt a burst of joy and relief in his heart. No matter what, I have taken revenge. The boundless hatred in his previous life was like a huge rock in his heart. Now it was finally lifted. This monster ape emitted a demonic aura that seemed to be real like stormy waves. It dispelled magic power, disintegrated Taoist heart, and made people's demonic thoughts grow. They were almost instantly assimilated. Under the rolling demonic aura, cultivators fell to the ground one by one. They screamed as they fell, and their bodies went limp. On one hand, it was the erosion of the demonic laws. On the other hand, it was purely because they were scared. The spiritual impact was too terrifying. Heaven-carrying demonic ape. Someone screamed, and Wu Bian said in horror, a heaven-carrying demonic ape with 100,000 years of cultivation. It once killed a saint. Huff, huff, worm, white and tender worm. Sweet. The heaven-carrying demonic ape pursed its lips and whistled. It raised its hand and stuffed Yan Nanxian into its mouth, chewed a few times, and swallowed him. At this moment, everyone was dumbfounded. One had to know that Yan Nanxian was a half-saint. However, they were swallowed without being able to put up any resistance. The crowd was even more vulnerable. Su Jiahao was the first to run. He was a scavenger and liked to take advantage of opportunities. He did not do things that would make him lose money. The premise of dealing with Jiang Tian was that there was no risk. Once there was a risk, he would not act brave and ruthless. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast. He broke through space as fast as lightning. Because he was often chased and intercepted when he was scavenging, he had mastered many movement and speed secret techniques. However, they were useless. A demonic chain shot out from the void and instantly pierced his divine treasure, nailing him to the ground like a toad. It hurts. He let out a miserable scream. It was extremely mournful and primitive. Su Jihao lost his life in a matter of seconds and truly died on this piece of land. Oh my God! The Qishan sect cultivators who were following behind almost peed their pants when they saw this scene. They turned around and ran. Run! The situation took a sudden turn for the worse, and in an instant, the numerous cultivators that were originally shouting to kill Jiang Tian were instantly terrified to the point of fleeing in a sorry state, and they were terrified like stray dogs. At this moment, the cultivators were shrouded in fear. They only hated that their parents did not give them an extra pair of legs so that they could run faster. The heaven-carrying demonic ape let out a furious roar. Bone spikes flew out of its body and descended from the sky. Chains of laws swept across the world, leaving a rain of blood wherever they passed. Roar, 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 roar. Help! In an instant, the no-man's land instantly turned into hell. The cultivators were killed one after another. Blood dyed the ground red, and their remains and Dharma treasures were scattered everywhere. We can't get out. What should we do? At this moment, Zhao Feifei, who was in a dead end, was as pale as a sheet. Her delicate body trembled, and her heart was filled with endless fear. She had always bullied the weak and was not weaker than others. She had a strong heart and ruthless means. However, she had never encountered such a terrifying existence. The heaven-carrying demonic ape was extremely powerful. One attack would kill several people and sweep across the area. However, when the cultivator's attacks landed on its body, they were like tickles and were easily disintegrated by the demonic laws. At this moment, she regretted it. When she saw that Jiang Tian and the other two were safe and sound, she understood that she had been used by Jiang Tian. He had clearly lured them into the heaven-carrying demonic ape's attack range. It sounded simple, but it revealed that Jiang Tian had an extremely deep understanding of the critical canyon. He was definitely an old demon. She had underestimated him. Only, she didn't understand how she had offended such an experienced old devil. Chapter 2042. Form the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Quick, quick, quick. There was no way to escape now. The guards of the Yachang Emperor roared and commanded the cavalry to form a military formation, wanting to kill their way out. Seeing this, Zhao Feifei seemed to see a glimmer of hope in the endless darkness. Her dim eyes shone with hope. The greatest function of a battle formation was to gather sand into a tower and gather cultivation. Perhaps they could really kill their way out. However, the flame of hope in her heart was instantly extinguished by the cruel reality. It was useless. Bang, bang, bang. Bone spikes rampaged, iron chains flew across the sky, and the cavalry formation was instantly destroyed. Blood rained down from the sky, and screams rose and fell one after another. The Yachang Emperor's cavalry was instantly wiped out. Not a single one was left, including the 3 soul formation experts. This time, not only Zhao Feifei and the others, but also the cultivators who were watching from the outside. Everyone was scared out of their wits. At this time, the demonic ape roared. Many bone spikes seemed to have a mind of their own as they formed the shape of a millstone in the air. It swept across and killed countless cultivators along the way. Finally, it landed heavily on Zhao Feifei's back. Boom! Crack! Zhao Feifei's divine treasures were all shattered. Her entire body exploded like a firework. Her flesh, broken bones, organs, and magic treasures were all set ablaze and scattered with flames. Until her death, her face was still filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness. It was as if she could not accept that her husband and master had all died here in one day. This was the complete extermination of her family. How did you fool my feelings in my previous life? In your eyes, I was an overconfident clown, a toad who wanted to eat swan meat. When Jiang Tian saw this, a faint smile appeared on his face, and a sense of relief appeared in his heart again. Another grudge had been resolved. In his previous life, Zhao Feifei had deceived his feelings and played him like a monkey. She even helped Yan Nanxian take over his body. How much true feelings and how much pretense had completely disappeared with this firework explosion. The millstone was like a giant wheel that crushed the sky. Flesh and blood splattered, and screams filled the sky. In seconds, all the disciples of the Tianluo sect were killed. Seeing the cultivators fleeing in all directions, the heaven-carrying demonic ape flapped its wings and chased after them. For a moment, cries for their fathers and mothers rose and fell one after another. All kinds of miserable screams rang out continuously. The cultivators on the periphery fell like rain. They couldn't wait to escape from this hell on earth. However, no matter how fast they would not be able to escape from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's pursuit. The ape was even faster, and the demonic law chains and bone spikes were his long-range weapons. He would not let any of them escape. However, from the beginning to the end, Jiang Tian sat steadily on the fishing platform, not moving at all. The devil ape, on the other hand, did not even look at them from the beginning to the end. At first, Sima Tu was so scared that he wanted to run away, but later, he stopped moving. Huang Linger couldn't help but worry at first, but now she also let out a long sigh of relief. In the end, Sima Tu couldn't hold back his curiosity. He looked at Jiang Tian respectfully and asked, "Fellow cultivator, what's going on?" Huang Linger looked at Jiang Tian, who was calm and collected, and said softly, "Is it because of the jam on our bodies? This is the devil fruit. It's just a name that people habitually call it because of its appearance." Jiang Tian sipped the fruit wine and said casually, "Actually, it's called the filthy fruit. This fruit contains a special demonic aura that counters the heaven-carrying demonic ape. It's said that after being contaminated or eaten, the demonic law of the heaven-carrying demonic ape will be disintegrated. The bone spikes will smile, and the demonic chains will corrode. Therefore, the ape can't wait to avoid it." Sima Tu looked enlightened at first, then he asked, "Filthy fruit? I've never heard of it. How did you know?" Jiang Tian said calmly, "To me, it's just common knowledge." Sima Tu was speechless. He was deeply shocked. Huang Linger asked again, "But how did you know that there's a heaven-carrying demonic ape here? Aren't they most afraid of the filthy fruit?" "It's very simple." Jiang Tian smiled helplessly. "The heaven-carrying demonic ape will change its bone spikes every 1,000 years. It's like a snake that needs to shed its skin when it grows up. But the bone spikes are stubborn and difficult to shed. They need this kind of filthy fruit to help them loosen the bone spikes. In short, the demonic ape hates the filthy fruit and doesn't even want to touch it. Naturally, it can protect us. But when it needs to shed its bone spikes, it has no choice but to use it. And you can also see that the filthy fruit here is planted neatly. It's obviously cultivated by the demonic ape. Therefore, you can infer that this is the nest of the demonic ape." Jiang Tian said with a smile. Such demonic beasts of the void return level are usually too lazy to go out and hunt humans. After all, soul formation stage humans are just desserts in their eyes. They are unwilling to leave their nest. But if you go to their nest of your own accord, that's a different matter. Sima Tu looked at Jiang Tian in shock. He was simply omniscient and omnipotent. He actually knew such rare knowledge. And Huang Linger naturally understood. Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives and had gone through ups and downs for countless years. He had seen countless demonic beasts and was naturally familiar with their habits. In fact, that was indeed the case. Not to mention demonic beasts of the void return level, Jiang Tian had even kept stronger demonic beasts as pets. These little tricks were really nothing to him. Run for your lives. In this no-man's land, countless human cultivators were killed, but Jiang Tian had no sympathy. They were here to kill him in the first place, so they deserved to die. In this area, screams were extremely ear-piercing. The heaven-carrying demonic apes battle was also earth-shattering. Don't go over. Demonic beasts of the void return level can suppress sages. That's right, it's a heaven-carrying demonic ape. Don't even mention how terrifying it is. The sect has ordered that this beast likes to hibernate in its nest. It's safe as long as it doesn't enter the no man's land. No one is allowed to enter. Retreat immediately. Even the cultivators within a few thousand miles of the no man's land had heard the news and retreated one after another. So many soul formation cultivators have died. The Tianluo sect has been annihilated. Yan Nanxian's family of 3 loved to bully others. Great, now they're all dead. The Qishan sect is also dead. Hee, they also have a day like this? I heard that the 3 captains of the Yachang Emperor's guards were all soul formation cultivators. All of them have also died. Everyone was discussing, and some were even gloating. However, they were still extremely afraid of the heaven-destroying demonic ape. Not to mention ordinary sects, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was too powerful. Even sacred grounds and countries had to retreat. My 3 captains of guards have all died there. The Yachang Emperor couldn't help but sigh when he heard the news. After all, they were all experts trained with a lot of money. So what if they're dead? The Iron Hand Saint said coldly. They're too stupid. How could they rush into the demonic ape's nest? Your Majesty, we have to avoid this area. The demonic ape chased them all the way to the border of the no man's land before it stopped and stopped. When it stood at the border of the no man's land and glanced around, the cultivators on the periphery were all scared out of their wits and retreated again. Many people's legs gave out, and they sat on the ground. The Iron Hand Saint frowned and pondered for a while. Suddenly, he looked at the no man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. However, there seems to be something wrong with the old cultivators around Huanglinger. I have to keep an eye on them. Chapter 2043. However, the heaven-carrying demonic ape was more reluctant to leave its nest. After killing everyone, it did not chase after them. Instead, it turned around and returned to its nest. This no man's land regained its dead silence. Only the thick smell of blood floated in the air. Countless broken limbs were strewn on the ground, and there were also fragments of magic treasures left behind. Everyone marked this no man's land on the map and treated it as a forbidden zone. In the Luoying sect, Saint Qianma frowned and sighed. Ling entered that area. I don't know if she's dead or alive. The demonic aura was too strong, and the laws were eroded. They could not sense the existence of the soul tablet. I'm afraid she's already dead. Lian Huahuan's face was calm, and there was no sympathy. Because this disciple came from a lowly background and came from the distant Milky Way. The key was that she was ungrateful and repeatedly disobeyed her. She embarrassed herself in front of Yan Nanxian and died cleanly. Not necessarily. Saint Qianma said. I see that their soul tablets are not extinguished yet. They just became weaker. They may be hiding somewhere. I have to save them. Saint, it's too dangerous. Elder, is it worth taking the risk for a nascent soul disciple? Many disciples of the Luoying sect exclaimed and tried to persuade her. Especially Hua Xiangrong and the other disciples of Saint Qianma, they were even more reluctant. Huanglinger was Lian Huahuan's disciple, but she did not care and abandoned her like a worn-out shoe. What's the point of caring about this? Why is it not worth it? Saint Qianma smiled. Life is priceless. Every disciple in the sect, regardless of their cultivation level, is a treasure of the sect. Don't worry. I have experience in dealing with demonic creatures. Nothing will happen to me if I remain stealthy. Many disciples saw this, and although they were worried, they did not say anything. Lian Huahun disagreed. Elder, if you go, I'm afraid it's not safe for me to guard the flying ship alone. This is the base camp of many disciples. Should we consider the overall situation, there's no need to discuss this anymore. I've made up my mind. Saint Qianma frowned and said, I only need 1 day. Go and come back quickly. During this period, all disciples should not go out to look for the silver-rich grass and toads. Return to the flying ship. She glanced at the crowd and instructed earnestly, Don't worry. Our focus is on participation, experience, and protecting ourselves. Obtaining treasures is only the second most important thing. In order to find Huanglinger, all disciples must return. When Lian Huahan heard this, she was so angry that she almost vomited blood. However, Saint Qianma's words were reasonable and she could not refute them. Huang Linger is simply a jinx. You're delaying our search for the silver-rich grass and the toad. At this moment, Lian Huahan wished she could tear Huang Linger to shreds. Zhongnu, for the rest of the day, you'll have to control the overall situation. I'm leaving. Saint Qianma left the flying boat and flew towards the uninhabited area in the east. She quickly disappeared between the rolling devil aura and the lofty mountains. After all the cultivators had died or left, the no-man's land fell into silence. Jiang Tian did not leave this place. Instead, he stood on top of a mountain and observed. Looking at the undulating mountain range, Jiang Tian stroked his chin and sighed as his gaze swept past the few silver-rich grass that only had roots left. Good fellow, this fiery toad has eaten so much good stuff. Isn't it afraid of being stuffed to death? Should we chase after it? Chase? Beside him, Huang Linger asked softly. No. Jiang Tian pondered for a moment before he shook his head slowly. The fiery scarlet toad is simply too fast. Now that it's frightened, it's even faster. It'll be difficult for us to catch up. You can't imagine the speed it's running for its life. Then do you have a countermeasure? Huang Linger could not help but ask when she saw that Jiang Tian seemed to have a card up his sleeve. Jiang Tian smiled calmly and said, "That's right. It's full and has been chased for so long. This toad is probably tired and wants to rest. Since it wants to sleep, let's set up a small nest for it. Then it's here." His smile was very bright, revealing his white teeth. As he spoke, he steered the flying boat and flew a few rounds above the no-man's land. Finally, he found a suitable place. This was a rather rare swampland. The mud was as black as oil, and there were countless green rusty skeletons floating in it. It bubbled like boiling water, and black demonic chi filled the air, making one's hair stand on end. This is fucking disgusting. Standing on the shore, Sima Tu's face immediately turned ugly. He was a rough man, but when he saw this scene, he could not help but feel ominous. Huang Linger also held her breath and looked nervous. Both the smell and the corrosion of the demonic chi made her extremely uncomfortable. Jiang Tian looked as if he was used to it. He glanced around and nodded in satisfaction. "Senior brother Sima, please plow this swamp for me. The mud must be fresh, like a steaming bun that just came out of the oven." "I'll do it." Sima Tu was very reluctant. "I'm an elite disciple of the Sacred Grounds Archaean sect. How can I do this kind of menial work? This is the work of servants, no mortals." "Elite disciple? Huh, you're a bug to the heaven-carrying demonic ape. He's not full yet. Should I call him out?" Jiang Tian chuckled and said, "No, don't call him that. No, there's no need to make it so complicated. I just need to knock the earth filth fruit jam off your body. Don't. It's just a joke." Sima Tu was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He immediately took action and dived into the swamp. Then, the mud in the swamp began to churn as if it was boiling. Jiang Tian took Huang Linger to prepare other things. In the past few years, Jiang Tian had quietly accumulated a large amount of spirit herbs and medicinal herbs. Many of them were even wood, stone, vine, and grass that Huang Linger couldn't even name. Jiang Tian burned a large number of spirit herbs and elixir herbs to ashes. Then he took Huang Linger to dig up mud ores that she could not name. Finally, under the guidance of Jiang Tian, the two of them were like children playing with mud. They carefully mixed the mud ores and the ashes into it. "What are we going to do?" Huang Linger felt as if she had returned to her childhood when she was stirring mud. She recalled her time on Earth and couldn't help but smile. "We're going to make a nest for it." Jiang Tian smiled and said, "For a toad that's full and tired from running, there's nothing better than a comfortable nest for it to have a good sleep. Of course, as long as it's asleep, I can't say for sure how long it'll take for it to wake up." Speaking of this, Jiang Tian showed a bright smile. There was no more gloominess and depression from before. Huang Linger saw his expression and knew that Jiang Tian was plotting against the flaming red toad. She was very confident in Jiang Tian. Whether it was the heaven-carrying demonic ape or the flaming red toad, Jiang Tian knew their habits like the back of his hand. It was as if he had personally raised them for many years. Chapter 2044. However, she did not ask about the theory behind it anymore. Soon, Jiang Tian and Huang Linger made a mud nest. There was a faint smell of grass in the mud nest. This grassy aroma had a spicy smell that could be smelled from far away. The toad must love this nest. It's a standard mansion. Jiang Tian took a sip of fruit wine and smiled in satisfaction. At this time, Sima too had also plowed the swamp. Just as Jiang Tian had requested, it was steaming hot like a freshly baked bun. The demonic qi and miasma seemed to be thicker and could be smelled from far away. Jiang Tian waved his sleeves and the mud nest fell into the swamp. It slowly sank into the swamp and revealed the entrance of the cave. Everything is ready except for the east wind. Next, we'll have to rely on luck. Jiang Tian pondered for a while and said seriously, let's leave here. At least 1,000 miles away, we'll wait for the rabbit. He sighed helplessly. Brother Sima's concealment skills are too bad. No matter how we hide, we'll be discovered. Sima too was embarrassed but could not refute. Seeing that Jiang Tian was serious, everyone immediately left and retreated to a hidden cave 1,000 miles away. That was not enough. Jiang Tian used the mysterious art of deceiving heaven and earth to form a barrier that enveloped Huang Linger and Sima Tuesday. The three of them held their breaths and stared at the mud nest, waiting for the arrival of the fiery scarlet toad. This toad was too important to Jiang Tian. Not only could it increase one's cultivation, but it also hid a huge secret. Time passed slowly, wearing down the three of their patience. Sima too was getting impatient and said in a low voice, "Fellow cultivator, we've waited for so long. Why hasn't the toad come out yet? Could it be that the mud nest had failed? Or was the toad caught by other cultivators? Maybe the mud nest failed." As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, Sima too was disappointed. "Let's go out. This is the nest of the heaven-carrying demonic ape. What if it comes out?" "Don't talk nonsense. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll skin you alive and use you as bait to attract the toads." Jiang Tian's words frightened Sima too until his entire body quivered, but he didn't dare to speak anymore. After waiting bitterly for a long time, Jiang Tian's eyes suddenly flashed and he said in a low voice, "Quiet, they're coming." Huang Linger and Sima too, who were originally drowsy, suddenly became alert and stared at the mud pit without moving. True enough. Swoosh! A thin red light flashed and landed on the mud pit. The speed of this red light was too fast. If not for the fact that the three of them were observing with rapt attention and relaxed, they would not have noticed it at all. The light faded, and the three of them immediately saw that it was a toad. At first glance, this toad seemed no different from an ordinary toad. It was only the size of an adult's fist. However, his body was covered with red flame patterns, as if they were natural Tao patterns of raging fire. It had a natural charm of Tao. In addition, his stomach was especially bulging. It was unknown how much he had eaten. In fact, the flaming scarlet toad was indeed priceless. Its great Tao of raging fire could burn space, so its speed was extremely fast. It ate supreme treasure herbs and divine herbs daily. The spiritual qi, laws, and great Tao contained within were hard to calculate. One could imagine how precious it was. After the flaming scarlet toad landed on the swamp, its nostrils flared slightly, smelling the wind and grass around it, appearing very vigilant. It was very obvious that it had been frightened all the way and was very careful. The slightest sound would startle it and make it run far away. Therefore, Jiang Tian was even more cautious. He did not move at all, not even daring to breathe. After a moment, confirming that there was no danger around, the flaming scarlet toad walked toward its cave entrance very carefully. Finally, the flaming scarlet toad stayed at the cave entrance motionlessly for 15 minutes. After confirming that it was safe again, it jumped into the mud pit and dug up some mud to block the cave entrance. At this time, from the outside, the mud pit had already disappeared. There was no trace of it at all. Just as Jiang Tian guessed, it had eaten too many good things and was tired from running. It could not wait to hibernate. However, even though the toad had entered its cave, Jiang Tian did not come out to take the mud pit immediately. Jiang Tian knew the habits of the flaming scarlet toad better than anyone. It was very vigilant and had not truly fallen asleep even now. He could only catch it after it had truly fallen asleep. Otherwise, once it was alarmed, it would be difficult to catch it again. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult. After waiting for a full 2 hours, Jiang Tian pinched his fingers and calculated that the toad should have truly fallen asleep. Only then did he suddenly take out the mud pit and seal it with laws before putting it into his robes. As immovable as a mountain, as swift as fire and as swift as the wind, Su Rulin. Brother, you're brilliant. Sima Tu flattered. This flattery is not creative at all. Hee, it's not an exaggeration to say that if I didn't make a move, even void reversion saints might not be able to take it down. Jiang Tian said delightedly. He took out his flying boat and was about to leave. At this moment, a long rainbow streaked across the sky. Saint Chinma flew over and landed silently. She was pleasantly surprised. Ling, are you all right? Elder, I'm fine. Why are you here? Huang Linger's face immediately lit up with joy. She was not Saint Chinma's disciple and did not have much contact with her usually. But for some reason she felt very close to her, much closer than Lian Huahan. I heard that you guys entered the forbidden area of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, so I came to find you guys. Let's go. Saint Chinma said weakly. Jiang Tian scanned with his divine consciousness and found that she had been infected by demonic qi and had injuries on her body. She must have gone through a fierce battle. He could not help but feel touched. Without any nonsense, everyone boarded Saint Chinma's flying boat and flew towards the Luoying sect's large flying boat. Croak, croak. At this moment, the flaming scarlet toad in Jiang Tian's arms cried out. Saint Chinma's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. This is, Senior, I've caught the flaming scarlet toad. Jiang Tian said calmly. He did not hide it. Saint Chinma was sincere and valued righteousness over benefits. Jiang Tian admired her character, so he addressed her as senior and treated her sincerely. This. Saint Chinma was shocked again. The flaming scarlet toad is extremely fast. Even void reversion saints would find it difficult to catch it. Could it be that you've hidden your cultivation level and are a peerless expert? The more she looked at Jiang Tian, the more she believed in her deduction. Although Jiang Tian looked depressed and dispirited, he was a mediocre middle-aged man who had been destroyed by life. But in essence, Jiang Tian had a carefree temperament. Even when facing him, he was calm and collected. How could he be immortal? Jiang Tian chuckled. Senior, you've overestimated me. Indeed, I've hidden my cultivation level. However, it's not peerless or peerless. My cultivation level is merely at the peak of nascent soul realm. You're turning into a mortal? Saint Chenma understood immediately. She could not help but think even more highly of Jiang Tian and lamented. I've lived for a few thousand years and have seen many cultivators who have turned into mortals. However, you're the first one who has walked so far on the path of turning into a mortal, completely returning to being ordinary and becoming one with the mortal world. You're the only one. Congratulations, fellow Taoist. Since you've turned into a mortal so successfully, it shouldn't be a problem for you to turn into a soul formation cultivator. Your future is limitless. Chapter 2045. Saint Chinma's words were not out of politeness or exaggeration. Turning into a mortal was the process of building a foundation in the later stages of cultivation. It was similar to building a solid foundation when building a new building. Not only would it affect the soul formation realm, it would also affect the void reversion realm, Tao integration realm, and even the final tribulation to become an immortal. Thank you, Senior. Jiang Tian replied politely as well. Seeing how mystical Jiang Tian was, Saint Chenma could not help but fall into the old habits of some sect leaders. She smiled sweetly. Fellow Taoist, where are you from? Do you have any sect roots? I'm just an itinerant cultivator with no sect roots. Jiang Tian replied concisely. Jiang Tian did not mention his background. However, Saint Chinma was not a fool and did not ask further. She said sincerely, "Fellow Taoist, as the saying goes, a single strand of silk cannot form a thread and a single tree cannot form a forest. Although itinerant cultivators are carefree, they do not have any disciples and subordinates. There are many chores that they have to do personally and it's a waste of time. Secondly, there are no friends who can compare notes with you. You can only understand the confusion of immortal cultivation by yourself. Therefore, it's better to join a sect. Fellow Taoist, why don't you join our Luoying sect? I'll personally recommend you to the sect master and guarantee that you can become an elder." At the side, Sima Tu's eyes were red with jealousy and his cheeks were twitching. He had cultivated bitterly for 500 to 600 years in the Luoying sect and was only a personal disciple of an elder. To become an elder, one had to be the outer sect hall master and inner sect hall master. If everything went well, it would take at least another 500 to 600 years before he could become an elder. However, Jiang Tian had only been a servant in the Luoying sect for dozens of days and Saint Qianma was already recommending him to be an elder. Seeing that Jiang Tian did not reject immediately, Saint Qianma said even more fervently, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry. The so-called elder doesn't have to worry about much of the sect's affairs. It's more of a deterrent and you can completely focus on cultivation." Hearing that, Jiang Tian shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Thank you for your kindness, fellow Taoist. I appreciate your kind intentions, but that's not my ambition." At the side, Sima Tu was stunned. "Rejected? I guarantee that the treatment given by my sect will definitely surpass that of any other Archaean's sacred grounds." Saint Qianma did not give up and emphasized again. "No, when I said that my ambition doesn't lie here, I meant the entire Saint Origin world. Once this matter is over, I will leave Saint Origin world and travel to the universe." Jiang Tian said with a smile. "I see." Although Saint Qianma felt regretful, she couldn't say anything more. Jiang Tian's vision was not limited to this continent at all. At this moment, Jiang Tian gave her an incomparably mysterious and unfathomable feeling, making her sigh at her own inferiority. "However, as long as I'm still alive, I will come back. If Senior needs it, I will help. If the Luoying sect is facing a calamity of extermination, I will save them once." Jiang Tian said indifferently. Although Lian Huahan was only using Huang Linger as a bargaining chip in exchange for a marriage alliance with the sect, Saint Qianma had helped Huang Linger many times and made decisions for her. Jiang Tian had always been clear about kindness and grudges. He would always repay kindness. He would remember this favor. "Thank you." At this moment, Saint Qianma didn't doubt the relationship between Jiang Tian and Huang Linger. However, she was naturally very grateful and happy to receive Jiang Tian's promise. The flying boat was very fast. After a few hours, they arrived at the large flying boat of the Luoying sect. Jiang Tian and the others had just stepped out of the flying boat. The Yechang Emperor flew out from the hall, emitting a torrential imperial aura as he shouted majestically, "Little brat, how dare you be disrespectful to me and insult me? Now kneel before me." Behind him, Lian Huahan accompanied him. The Iron Hand Saint was holding the line as they stared at Jiang Tian. Obviously, the Yechang Emperor came prepared and had been waiting for him for a long time. "You're courting death." Jiang Tian's eyes were cold. The Yechang Emperor, Jiang Tian didn't put him in his eyes at all. Although the Black Moon Empire and the Eastern Empire were neighbors, Jiang Tian didn't think that they would threaten the Eastern Empire. The Starfire Academy had the cultivation techniques he left behind, and the selection system would also stimulate the potential of the commoners. The overall national strength would become stronger and stronger. He believed that in 100 years, the Black Moon Empire would be lucky if it wasn't swallowed by the Eastern Empire. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't plan to kill him. With another threat, it would make the Eastern Empire work harder. However, if he really wanted to court death, Jiang Tian wouldn't be polite. "Reckless thing, you're just an odd job worker." Do you think the Luoying sect will protect you? The Yachang Emperor mocked. Saint Qianma frowned when she heard this. She sent a message with her divine consciousness. Lady Qianma, this child's origin is mysterious and his strength is amazing. We can't underestimate him. We have to protect him and leave him a favor. In the future, he'll benefit from it. Sage, are you muddle-headed? He's just a servant. What's so great about him? Lian Huahan looked at Jiang Tian with disdain and sent a message with her divine consciousness. It's not worth offending the Yachang Emperor for him. Lady Qianma, if you don't listen to me, you'll regret it. Saint Qianma wanted to persuade her again. However, Lian Huahan glanced at Jiang Tian coldly. You damned handyman, have you forgotten the rules that I told you? Be careful with your words and actions. Don't offend cultivators. Now that you've caused a disaster, you have to bear the consequences. In fact, the reason why she insisted was not only because she didn't care about Jiang Tian's life, but also because she disliked Saint Qianma. Lian Huahan always felt that Saint Qianma liked to order people around. She thought that she was a saint and had enough experience. She even went to a remote star system like the Milky Way to train. Saint Qianma didn't have the right to make decisions for her. The Yachang Emperor shouted coldly. Now, come with me. I'm going to teach you a lesson. Jiang Tian said with disdain. You want to take me away? You don't want to teach me a lesson. You want to take away the flaming red frog I caught. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Hearing this, Lian Huahan looked at Jiang Tian in shock. How could a mere mortal servant catch the fiery red clam? She looked at Saint Qianma again. Saint Qianma just smiled helplessly. She immediately understood that it was true. This ordinary-looking middle-aged man was definitely an expert. He even caught the flaming red frog. At this moment, she couldn't help but regret. If she didn't give the Yachang Emperor face just now, it would be very easy for her to come up with an excuse to take the frog. However, she had just said that she would let the Yachang Emperor take it away. If she denied it now, it would seem that she was going back on her words. After all, the Luoying sect was an orthodox sect. The cultivators also regarded them as the pillar of Saint Origin world. The Yachang Emperor's thoughts were exposed, but he was still not ashamed. So what? You dare to insult me? That's a capital offense. A toad in exchange for your lowly life? You should be grateful. Hand it over. The demonic qi in the no man's land was very dense. He didn't directly see how Jiang Tian caught the flaming red frog. However, the Iron Hand Saint was also an old bird. He had explored this place several times and found that the flaming red frog had entered the no man's land. Then, his divine sense sensed that Jiang Tian had returned from the no man's land where the heaven-carrying demonic ape was. Moreover, there was a slight fluctuation of the flaming red frog's law on his body. Therefore, he immediately deduced that Jiang Tian might have caught the frog. Originally, the Yachang Emperor had wanted to forget about this matter because he had lost a lot of soldiers to capture Jiang Tian. After all, his ultimate goal was to explore and seize the treasure. However, when they heard the news, they immediately came to the flying ship of the Luoying sect to force Lian Huahan to take Jiang Tian away and punish him. Lian Huahan didn't know the inside story, so she naturally wouldn't stop them. What if I don't obey? Jiang Tian said calmly. Then I'll kill you. The Yachang Emperor shouted. Suddenly, an endless murderous aura shot up to the sky. It was as if it could kill all living things and destroy the world. Chapter 2046. Although Jiang Tian had escaped from the territory of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, and although Jiang Tian had captured the flaming red toad, the Yachang Emperor did not think that Jiang Tian was more powerful than him. Later, a few cultivators who had escaped from the heaven-carrying demonic ape's hands also explained. Jiang Tian had not made a move from the beginning to the end. Everyone had died in the hands of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but the demonic ape had not attacked Jiang Tian at all. After hearing the news, the Yachang Emperor and the Iron Hand Saint had a long discussion. In the end, they agreed that Jiang Tian knew the habits of the heaven-carrying demonic ape, but he might not be very powerful. Otherwise, he would not have lured everyone into the territory of the demonic ape. He could have killed them directly. It was because they thought that Jiang Tian was not very powerful and treated him as a fat sheep. Otherwise, they would not have dared to come and snatch him. You. Jiang Tian smiled contemptuously and said, "Get out of here before I get angry. Otherwise, I will kill you. Not to mention you, even your master is just an ant in my eyes." As soon as he said that, the whole place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief as if they were looking at a lunatic. Even the Iron Hand Saint raised his eyebrows and looked at Jiang Tian. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well, as if he was looking at an ant. "You don't know what's good for you. How dare you talk so arrogantly? Don't you know who you are talking to? You are too arrogant. Do you think you are so great just because you caught the toad and scared the demonic ape with some tricks? Yes, in the end, the competition between cultivators is still a competition of strength. Talking is not enough." Many cultivators laughed at him. "Torture him well. Don't kill him immediately." Hearing that, the Yachang Emperor was furious, but he soon calmed down and said with a cruel smile, "I want him to know the consequences of being an enemy of the Black Moon Empire." At this time, the Divine Transformation Realm Guards of the Yachang Emperor sneered coldly. One of the Divine Transformation Realm Guards stepped forward with a cruel look in his eyes. "You have indeed concealed your cultivation, but upon closer inspection, your cultivation is merely at the nascent soul stage. If we attack a nascent soul cultivator together, we'll be bullying you. This lord can take care of you by myself. What do you want to do now? Perhaps this lord can even lessen the pain before your death." Although he said that, he did not show any mercy. His Tao artifact shone brightly as it flew towards Jiang Tian. "Scram!" Jiang Tian shouted. His figure flashed, and his whole person soared into the sky, crashing towards the other party. The Divine Transformation Realm Guard captain had a mocking expression on his face. Using his physical body to collide with his Tao artifact was tantamount to courting death. However, with a clang, the Tao artifact shattered. Blood rained down from the sky, and broken bones sparkled. In the blink of an eye, the guard captain was struck by Jiang Tian, and he was like a weak infant that was smashed by a heavy hammer. He was instantly smashed into meat paste, and his shattered body shot out in all directions. "Protect the Emperor!" The other guards were startled. They shouted, and several Tao artifacts and dozens of true artifacts attacked Jiang Tian together. "HM? This guy is so strange." Even the Iron Hand Saint, whose eyes were as calm and indifferent as an ancient well, had a slight change in his expression as he let out a soft cry of surprise. He had never thought that Jiang Tian would be able to crush a Divine Transformation Realm cultivator when he was only at the nascent soul stage. "You're courting death." Jiang Tian let out a loud roar. His cultivation base rose steadily, and his aura soared to the sky. At first, Jiang Tian had planned to hide his cultivation and not use his trump card until the last moment, in case the giant in the 9 heavens sensed it. That was why he had used the heaven-carrying demon ape to ambush Yan Nanxian and the others. But at this moment, Emperor Yicheng was forcing him, and Jiang Tian was not a pushover. How could he tolerate it? If he killed them, then so be it. He could just forge another identity after he got out. In his fury, Jiang Tian did not use any techniques. Instead, he used his physical strength to charge forward. However, the chaotic godly body was far too terrifying. It was like the most vicious weapon. It was extremely heavy and unstoppable. "Ah! Help! Get out of the way!" Screams and screams were heard one after another. One by one, the guards exploded like a string of firecrackers. Their armors, shields, and Dharma artifacts were all shattered. They could not withstand a single blow. In the blink of an eye, dozens of guards died, including 7 or 8 Divine Transformation Realm Guards. Such a change stunned everyone who saw it. There were no moves, no Dharma spells, no power of the Grand Tao, no Dharma laws. It was purely his body, but it was invincible. He forcefully crushed all the enemies in his way, especially Lian Huahun and the others from the Luoying sect. They were shocked and felt a little scared. Along the way, Jiang Tian had been showing up as a mortal servant. In their eyes, he was just an ordinary person who knew a little about alchemy and could repair Dharma artifacts. Thus, many disciples also did not mince words towards Jiang Tian, ordering him around here and there. But now, if this person wanted to take revenge, not many people could withstand his thunderous attack. Damn it! The Yachang Emperor stared at Jiang Tian with a hint of fear in his eyes. It was as if he had seen a demon, and a chill ran down his spine. Form the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation. The Iron Hand Saint was also shocked by Jiang Tian, but he quickly regained his composure and shouted. The Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation could combine everyone's cultivation as one. The power of the formation was comparable to that of a sage. The Iron Hand Saint did not believe it at all. Jiang Tian was just a nascent soul realm cultivator. Even if he drank the blood of a perfected immortal, he could not have the strength of a void-returned sage. Form the formation. Many guards immediately reacted. As they retreated and distanced themselves from Jiang Tian, they changed positions and formed a battle formation. They were well-trained and orderly, and their arrangement seemed to be in accordance with some kind of heavenly Tao. Jiang Tian stopped for the first time and looked at the battle formation with interest. The Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation is powerful and intimidating. Although this person is arrogant, he doesn't dare to do something like throwing an egg at a rock. He's afraid in the end. Seeing Jiang Tian stop, the Yachang Emperor thought that Jiang Tian was afraid. He could not help but feel smug and sneered. If I didn't stop, would this bullshit Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation have a chance to be formed? As soon as Jiang Tian said that. Arrogant. The Yachang Emperor was like a cat whose tail was stepped on when his ancestral formation was mocked. He flew into a rage. Could it be that this lad is so daring that he has the strength of a saint? However, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned and his heart suddenly turned cold. Because he understood that Jiang Tian's words were not empty bravado, and every single one of them was reasonable. His movement technique was indeed faster than those soul formation and nascent soul realm cultivators. If he didn't do it on purpose, the battle formation would not have been formed. However, before he could react, Jiang Tian had already swayed and slashed at the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation like a peerless heavenly blade. At this time, the Emperor Ming Demon Vanquishing Formation was truly activated. Thousands of nascent soul cultivators and soul formation cultivators were wearing shining armors. Powerful Dharma power waves gathered like streams into an ocean, forming the image of a benevolent Emperor Ming above the battle array. Chapter 2047. The shadow of Emperor Ming was over 1,000 feet tall. He wore a crown and an emperor's robe. He was majestic and skilled in both civil and martial arts. He held a long saber in his hand and raised it high. Then he slashed it at Jiang Tian. This slash contained the power of exorcism and exorcism. It was powerful enough to kill a saint. In less than a second, the two sides collided violently. At the moment of collision, everyone had the illusion that time and space had come to a standstill. After a few seconds, time resumed its flow. A loud bang was heard. First, the demon exorcism saber in Emperor Ming's hand cracked and fell apart. It floated in the air like a stream of light. Then the force spread. His arms, body, and head also fell apart like pieces of paper. The surging waves of dermic power directly destroyed the battle formation below. He broke the formation with one strike. He's so powerful. How terrifying. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with awe. Their hearts were in a state of chaos and disbelief. He has become so powerful? Huang Linger couldn't help but feel shocked and overjoyed. She knew that Jiang Tian was Imperial Advisor Siqing. When he was in the Eastern Empire, his hands were stained with blood. He had the power to kill gods and saints. However, hearing about it was one thing. Seeing it with her own eyes was another thing. After all, she had not seen Jiang Tian fight since she parted ways with Jiang Tian on Earth. Now that she saw it for the first time, the psychological impact was unimaginable. Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Her face was filled with disbelief. The saint. She could not help but regret it. She did not see that this person was a powerhouse at the level of a giant. Therefore, she was persuaded by Emperor Yachang with a few words. She did not care whether he lived or died and let Yachang do whatever she wanted. If she had seen through Jiang Tian's capabilities, or if she had stuck to her principles, or if she had been less arrogant and not so headstrong, she would have listened to Saint Qianma's earnest advice and would not have offended Jiang Tian. If she could keep Jiang Tian in the Luoying sect, she would have another powerful pillar of support. After all, there were only a few dozen saints in the entire Saint Origin world. They were extremely rare and important. This is the Emperor Ming's demon-destroying formation. Even Saint Qianma was shocked. Her face was full of shock and her delicate body trembled. Although she knew that Jiang Tian was strong, she did not expect him to be this strong. She was afraid that the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation would be broken. As expected, after Jiang Tian destroyed Emperor Ming's shadow, his momentum did not diminish at all. Like a peerless heavenly blade cutting open the earth, he split the entire battle formation apart in an instant. Countless cultivators were sent flying like paper shredded in the wind. Some of them even turned into a bloody mist on the spot. Flesh and blood rained down, and fragments of armors and artifacts shot out. Smash it! Seeing Jiang Tian charging at him with unstoppable momentum, he roared and took out a saint artifact-grade shield. This shield came from the inheritance of the first emperor and could withstand several full-powered attacks from Return to Void stage saints. He had refined it with his blood essence for several decades, and it was his natal Dharma artifact. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to control it. The shield could be used for both offense and defense. It immediately shrank to the size of a millstone, then whistled through the air toward Jiang Tian. Bam! Under Jiang Tian's attack, the shield immediately flew diagonally and lost control. Several cracks appeared on it. Jiang Tian's momentum did not diminish as he continued to charge toward the Yachang Emperor. The Yachang Emperor flipped his right hand and took out a saint artifact-grade mirror. However, at this moment he was already frightened by Jiang Tian. Therefore, he let out a frantic cry for help. "Master, save me!" His voice carried a clear sobbing tone. The emperor of a large country, how ruthless and tenacious, how cold-hearted, but under Jiang Tian's tyrannical suppression, he was actually like a bullied child, on the verge of tears. "Fellow Taoist, please stop." In fact, he did not need to say anything. The Iron Hand Saint had already made his move. He stretched out his right hand, which covered the sky and the sun. Like a falling mountain, he grabbed at Jiang Tian's head. This giant palm was really terrifying. It was completely condensed from the laws of the Great Tao. It was extremely heavy and majestic. Even an early-stage void return expert would find it difficult to deal with it. However, Jiang Tian did not want to take it head-on. This was the first time he used it. The Kuan Peng divine law filled his entire body. His body was strong and flexible like a dragon. It was as if he could split the heaven and earth, split yin and yang, and broke through space. In a flash, he appeared beside the Yachang Emperor. "You dare to kill me? I am the emperor of a country. If you kill me, you will become the enemy of the entire country." The Yachang Emperor roared fiercely. "Idiot!" Jiang Tian reached out with his right hand and grabbed onto his head like a steel hook. Then, his head and spine were pulled out of his body in an instant. Blood splattered. The Yachang Emperor's eyes were wide open. He did not even have the chance to scream. "A mere Black Moon Empire is not qualified to threaten me." Jiang Tian casually threw his head aside and said slowly. At this moment, the entire scene was silent. Everyone held their breath and did not even dare to breathe loudly. All the surrounding cultivators were deeply shocked by this scene. They could not help but feel a chill down their spines and their hair stood on end. At this moment, when Jiang Tian's gaze swept across, all the cultivators present shuddered in unison. No one would have thought that this seemingly depressed and ordinary middle-aged man in front of them would be so decisive and ruthless in killing. At this moment, everyone's impression of him had changed. To be honest, when Jiang Tian rebelled against the Yachang Emperor, Many cultivators thought that he was reckless and arrogant. However, at this moment, everyone realized that he was not arrogant. He originally had the strength to do so. Moreover, he was a peerless, fierce person. It was just that he kept a low profile and did not like to cause trouble. At this moment, many people's scalps went numb. He even killed an emperor. How domineering and ferocious was this? For a moment, many people were so scared that they retreated more than 100 miles. They were afraid that Jiang Tian would go crazy and bring disaster to them. Among the crowd, only the people from the Eastern Empire were ecstatic. The Yechang Emperor is dead. God has opened his eyes. A sweet smile appeared on Princess Mou's pretty face. Her heart relaxed, as if a big stone had been removed from her. The Yechang Emperor was very evil, but he wanted to pursue her. Mou could not determine what this kid was going to do next. She felt as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. She was both afraid and disgusted. Princess Royal, Yechang is dead. I can guarantee that at least for 100 years, the Black Moon Empire will not have the strength to attack our country. Fang Goyu was also overjoyed and smiled like a flower. Yes. Mou nodded with a smile. However, Lin Yang touched his chin and looked at Jiang Tian's figure, revealing a thoughtful expression. Don't you think that this person is somewhat similar to an old friend of ours? Could it be Jing? After Lin Yang's reminder, Fang Goyu's mind seemed to light up like a bolt of lightning, illuminating the fog. It's really him. The more Mou looked, the more similar it seemed. She had been bitterly searching for Jiang Tian for several years, but there was no trace of him. She had been in despair. At this moment, seeing Jiang Tian for the first time, her heart could not help but feel sweet and sour. Unknowingly, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Chapter 2048. However, they were all very smart. They knew that if Jiang Tian was hiding his identity, he must have his reasons. Therefore, no one exposed him. I will kill you. Seeing this, the Iron Hand Saint couldn't help but be enraged. He took out a sacred weapon and attacked wildly, wanting to kill Jiang Tian. The Iron Hand Saint was flustered and exasperated at this moment. His beloved disciple had been killed in front of him. What a great humiliation! Moreover, his relationship with Yechang had been very deep over the years. They were like father and son. His beloved disciple's death was even more painful to him. He was determined to avenge his beloved disciple. The veteran saint attacked in anger. He was already at the mid-stage void return realm. How terrifying was that? He was much stronger than the sect master of the Aoshi sect, Suj and the others. He could be considered a big shot on this continent. Boom! Even though Jiang Tian had used the speed of the Kunpeng, he couldn't dodge in time and was sent flying by the sacred weapon. He crashed through mountain after mountain. After flying for dozens of kilometers, he crashed into something and created a mushroom cloud before coming to a stop. At that instant, many cultivators wore pained looks on their faces and inhaled deeply. This was a veteran saint attacking with his full strength with a sacred weapon. Even a body made of great Dao treasure metal would be shattered. This kid can be considered a genius, but he's too arrogant and doesn't know when to stop. Lian Huahun shook her head regretfully and disdainfully. At this moment, the expressions of eldest Princess Mou, Fang Goyu, and the others changed drastically. Huang Linger turned pale with fright and almost screamed out loud. Almost everyone was sure that Jiang Tian would die without a doubt. His chances of survival were slim. Old coffin board, this is a grudge between us. I will kill you. Boom. Rocks flew into the air. In the distance, Jiang Tian soared into the sky and shouted with a murderous aura. Upon closer inspection, there were only some superficial wounds on his body. There were no injuries at all. Most importantly, his spirit embryo and nascent soul were unharmed and could circulate freely. He's actually not dead. Could it be a legendary sacred nascent soul? No, I'm afraid it's an immortal nascent soul. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. How is this possible? Even Lian Huahuan's beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. A nascent soul cultivator was actually able to survive the attack of a veteran sage. This was too inconceivable. Not only did it have to be at the great circle of the nascent soul realm, it also had to be of an extremely high grade. But he didn't know. Even if it was just a superficial wound, Jiang Tian was already furious. Ever since he reached the peak of the nascent soul stage, this was the first time he suffered such a huge loss. Even if he were to be defeated by a veteran sage of the return to void intermediate stage, he still couldn't accept it. Reckless fool. His bones are pretty tough, he actually didn't die. The Iron Hand Saint shouted as he withdrew his saint weapon, wanting to attack again. Saint Qianma's body swayed and shielded Jiang Tian behind her. She shouted, "Iron Hand Saint, stop. This mister is my sex odd job worker, and he is not someone you can kill as you please. You casually kill people. Could it be that you don't put my Luo Ing sect in your eyes?" Clang. As she spoke, she also took out a saint weapon and prepared to fight to the death. The Iron Hand Saint was exasperated. "Qianma, you're willing to become enemies with me just to protect a nameless scoundrel. So what if I fight?" Saint Qianma didn't give an inch. The Yachang Emperor was obviously here for the fiery red toad and was bullying the weak. As for Jiang Tian's crime of insulting him, that was just an excuse. Now, he couldn't defeat Jiang Tian and even use the Emperor Ming's Demon Buster formation, but he was still killed by Jiang Tian. He only had himself to blame. The Iron Hand Saint still wanted to attack. He only cared about strength and not morality. Since the other party was so shameless, Saint Qianma naturally chose to fall out with the other party without hesitation. Just as the Iron Hand Saint hesitated, Princess Mou also stepped forward and said, "I can testify that this mister only said that the Yachang Emperor and I are not compatible. He didn't disrespect him and was just trying to persuade him. Emperor Yachang came here to pick a fight. It's obvious that he's here to seize the treasure." Not only did she move, but the entire army of the Eastern Empire also moved. They formed a battle formation and their murderous intent soared to the sky. Fang Jinlong, Lin Hanqing and the other Soul Formation Grand Cultivators were all ready to attack. "Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor killed you for the treasure. He was just trying to frame you. Now that he's dead, who can he blame?" Fang Jinlong sneered. Apparently, he was on Jiang Tian's side and wanted to fight to the death with the Iron Hand Saint. Well, the Iron Hand Saint was stunned. He didn't expect that not only Saint Qianma, but also the overlords of the Eastern Empire were on Jiang Tian's side. He was now alone and he only had a 50% chance of winning if he fought against Saint Qianma. With the Eastern Empire, his chances of winning were slim. "Senior Iron Hand, the dead can't come back to life. I'm sorry for your loss." While he was stunned, Lin Yang persuaded him softly to further weaken his fighting spirit and killing intent. Lin Hanqing secretly said with his immortal will, "Senior Iron Hand, the Yachang Emperor is dead. The Black Moon Empire will be in chaos and the people won't be able to make a living. How would they have the time to provide you with cultivation resources? Why don't you join our Starfire Academy? The reward will be increased by 1 generation. Hearing this, the Iron Hand Saint's eyes lit up and his killing intent slowly receded. The Iron Hand Saint was similar to the Grand Tutor. At the end of the day, he was still bound by benefits and didn't have deep emotional ties. In other words, even if he had emotional ties, they were secondary to benefits. So what if he killed Jiang Tian to avenge the Yachang Emperor? What benefits could he get? The biggest difference between cultivators and mortals was that they were extremely rational. They were rarely emotional and used the pros and cons as the yardstick. Besides, it was easy to kill Jiang Tian. All he had to do was leave a divine sense mark and follow him to kill him. There was no need to provoke everyone at this time and put himself in a passive position. Forget it. I was too impulsive. Since everyone is pleading for you, I'll give everyone face and spare your life. Besides, no matter how good your foundation is and how high the grade of your nascent soul is, you're still just a nascent soul. I'm crossing 2 levels to suppress you. Isn't that bullying? The Iron Hand Saint shook his head and sighed, pretending to be magnanimous. He had a look of, "I won't lower myself to your level." Jiang Tian's face was as cold as iron. He looked at the Iron Hand Saint's performance coldly and didn't say a word. To be honest, even if he was at the peak of the nascent soul realm, he could fight against a saint at level 1 or level 2 of the Void Return realm. However, it was extremely difficult to fight against a level 3 of the Void Return realm. After all, there was the suppression of levels. At this time, he had no chance of winning against the Iron Hand Saint. If they really fought, he might be obliterated. However, he had to avenge this attack. Your foundation is good. I didn't kill you because of my love for talent. I hope you can uphold justice in the future and become the pillar of this continent. The Iron Hand Saint was extremely hypocritical. He put on the demeanor of an honest elder and earnestly taught him. Thank you for not killing me, senior. I'll remember your teachings. It was my fault for killing the Yachang Emperor just now. Jiang Tian retracted his killing intent and bowed apologetically, looking repentant. Who didn't know how to act? Boom. Right at this moment, in the deepest part of the canyon, the place known as the Demon Tide area, an earth-shattering sound rang out. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. It was as if an inexplicable existence had awakened. It was an extremely terrifying and ominous aura. Everyone looked over at the same time and saw a shocking scene. Chapter 2049. A colorful pillar of light shot into the sky from the demonic tide area, illuminating the entire canyon. Around the pillar of light, a rain of light floated, covering hundreds of thousands of feet in the sky. It was extremely beautiful. After more than 10 flicks of a finger, the pillar of light and the strange rain of light disappeared. Immortal light like a pillar, auspicious air across the sky. Is this the legendary supreme immortal item about to be born? Is it the tree from the immortal world that suppresses the demonic creatures? Many cultivators couldn't help but be shocked. Before this, there were related rumors. There was an immortal tree suppressing the demonic creatures here. Once it was born, there would be dense immortal light, light rain, and auspicious colors, illuminating the 9 heavens and 10 lands. Now, the pillar of light shot into the sky, confirming the rumors. In an instant, the news of the immortal tree's birth spread throughout the entire critical canyon like a hurricane. All the adventuring forces were excited when they heard the news. The immortal tree, an item from the immortal world of the 9 heavens. It contained boundless power and represented boundless blessings. It was rumored that a withered branch could kill a Dao integration perfected immortal, and a leaf could directly push a mortal to the Void Return Saint realm. Although these rumors might be exaggerated, it was enough to see the miraculous and precious nature of the immortal tree. I'm going in. At this moment, the Iron Hand Saint could not be bothered with Jiang Tian anymore. He turned around and flew into the depths. Go, go, go. Quick, quick, quick. We have to take the initiative. In fact, the Iron Hand Saint was almost alone. Yachang had died, and many soul formation cultivators had been killed. There were only a few nascent soul cultivators left. However, at this moment, he also rushed in without a care for his own safety. The reason was very simple. The benefits were too great. Is there really a treasure from the immortal world? A relic of a true god? Seeing the Iron Hand Saint leading the Black Moon Empire forward, the other great sects, powerful nations, and famous families were all shaken. Let's go, we have to take a look no matter what. Yes, how can we enter a treasure mountain and return empty-handed? Wealth moved people's hearts, and cultivation resources were too tempting. For a moment, countless sects and powerful countries could not wait any longer and prepared to explore the depths of the canyon. But there's a supreme demonic creature there. That's right. It was said that the immortal tree was originally set up by a mighty person in the Middle Ages to suppress the supreme devil. That monster is surrounded by countless great devils. That is the place with the densest immortal chi and also the place with the densest devil chi. It's extremely dangerous. Anyone below the level of a saint would be digging their own graves if they enter. Some sect leaders were also very hesitant. Recalling all kinds of terrifying records and legends, he felt a chill run down his spine. I heard that even if you're near the immortal tree, As long as you keep your distance from the demons and don't alarm them, you'll be able to reap great rewards. Yes. As long as we follow behind the powerful forces, we'll follow them wherever they go. As long as we keep a low profile and don't alarm the demons, we'll be safe. Many cultivators harbored fantasies and wishful thinking. He clearly knew that this kind of treasure snatching was akin to licking the blood off the blade and snatching food from the tiger's mouth. However, when they saw Tai Shou enter, they were still tempted and started to act. Just like the old saying, humans die for wealth and birds die for food. However, the Luoying sect and the Eastern Empire were still biding their time. Sir, what do you think? To everyone's surprise, Saint Qianma actually looked at Jiang Tian and asked. The balance has really been broken. Jiang Tian's expression was slightly solemn as he sighed. Saint Qianma thought of a possibility and exclaimed, "Fellow Taoist, are you saying that the phenomenon in the demon-tide area is the final radiance of the immortal tree and those demons are about to be born?" Jiang Tian smiled but did not say anything. Fellow Taoist, is there really the legendary immortal tree, the treasures left behind by the immortal world and the god world? Eldest Princess Mou was also very curious. There were many related legends, but they were uncertain and confusing. That area was filled with mysteriousness, mystery, allure, and terror. In an instant, countless gazes fell on Jiang Tian, seeking his opinion. Clearly, he was treating Jiang Tian as one of those old monsters who knew everything in the world. This also made Jiang Tian helpless. Although he tried his best to keep a low profile and did not want to reveal any of his strength, there were some old friends that he had to protect. Everyone could still see that he was extraordinary from various details. However, it was obvious that eldest Princess Mou did not lack wisdom, and Lin Yang, Fang Goyu, and the others had also grown extremely quickly. They vaguely sensed that Jiang Tian was actually unwilling to keep his identity, so even now, they did not rashly acknowledge him. The treasures of the gods? If there really is, will Iron Hand and the others get a chance? Jiang Tian smiled disdainfully. Mou frowned and looked at Jiang Tian, asking in confusion, "Senior, what exactly is that?" "A fiend god." Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes calmly, but his slightly cold voice made people shudder. "A supreme fiend god that has been hungry for 100,000 years and wants to devour the world and destroy all living beings." When everyone heard this, they all shuddered. He's pretending to be mysterious. This old monster is dishonest. Although Lian Huahan knew that Jiang Tian had an extraordinary background, she did not believe Jiang Tian's words and could not help but sneer in her heart. That was because the treasures of sky immortals and sky gods in the depths of the critical canyon were not legends. After all, there were really predecessors who obtained immortal materials and divine materials from the depths and instantly became sages, obtaining the resources and foundation to become immortals and going far away to the star sea to find a greater opportunity. At this moment, all kinds of phenomena were exactly the same as in the legends and records. It was the sign of the birth of an immortal item. As for why Jiang Tian did this, it was very simple. Scaring away one was one, and there would be less interference and competition in the subsequent treasure hunt. And Saint Qianma confirmed one of her guesses through Jiang Tian's words. The immortal tree that suppressed the demonic creatures was about to wither and disintegrate. The supreme demonic creatures were about to rise and even open a passage. She could not help but look at Jiang Tian and say, "The demonic creatures are about to rise. Fellow Taoist, you know the demonic nature of the demonic creatures and should have a way to suppress them. At this moment, it's time for you to act righteously and save the world. Let's go to the demon-tide area to suppress the demonic creatures together." Jiang Tian felt a headache coming on. It was that, with great power comes great responsibility, again. However, he could not blame Saint Qianma. She was a void reversion saint and was equivalent to the pillar of this mainland. She had deep feelings for this mainland. Those words were not false and came out of sincerity. Jiang Tian believed that once the demon tide broke out, she would definitely give her all and even sacrifice her life. "Don't worry, I'll make a move when it's time. It's just that I have other things to do now," Jiang Tian said awkwardly but politely. Then let's part ways here. I'll lead the sect to the depths of the demon tide. Frowning, Saint Qianma suddenly took out her communication jade token and circulated her cultivation with all her might. Send a message. This was the communication jade token used by the Saint Alliance. In the Saint Origin mainland, many void reversion experts of the sacred grounds and god sects formed a Saint Alliance. They took it as their duty to suppress evil, wipe out the demonic creatures and protect the human race of the mainland. Once the message was sent, everyone received it at the same time. An extremely thin dermic power fluctuation shot up into the sky from the jade token. It was tens of thousands of feet long and was still extending. In the process of extending, there was no dermic power being emitted. Like a dazzling thin line, it rushed out of the liminal Grand Canyon. When it rushed out of the liminal Grand Canyon, the dermic power fluctuation exploded like a firework. The dermic power fluctuation that contained the message was like an invisible wave that rolled out in all directions. These dermic power fluctuations would be received by the same communication jade token and turned into a message. The demon tide is coming in the liminal Grand Canyon. Saint, that's just his side of the story. There's no need to be so nervous. Lien Huahun frowned and said, if it's fake news, won't it disturb the void reversion saint's cultivation? Chapter 2050. This is a serious matter. Once the demonic wave erupts, billions of lives will perish. Saint Qianma frowned with worry. Thus, even if there is only a sliver of hope, we must defend with all our might. Now, let's go to the deepest part of the canyon, the place where the auspicious light is. Determination appeared on her face. Good. Let's go at full speed. Lien Huahun didn't have any objections and was even impatient. However, her thoughts were different from Saint Qianma's. She simply thought that Jiang Tian was just scaring them. If they were late, they might even end up empty-handed. Let's go as well. At this moment, Grand Princess Mou had always been decisive and immediately said resolutely, once the demonic wave erupts, our Eastern Empire will be the first to be affected. The Empire will be in danger. Princess, we need to gather more cultivators and troops. But we can't rashly enter the canyon. It's too easy to die here. The residents within 200,000 miles of the evil-infested ridge must immediately move and set up a steel defense line to stop the demonic wave and annihilate it in this area. Lin Hanqing, Lin Yang, and Fang Jinlong were filled with battle intent and murderous intent. They emitted a fearless aura as they quickly discussed. Jiang Tian watched from the side and sighed at Lin Yang's rapid growth. He felt comforted in his heart. Especially when they faced danger and disaster, they still bravely faced it. They didn't abandon the civilians and used their actions to carry out Jiang Tian's concept of a single spark can start a prairie fire. Cultivators were born between mortals. The strong should fight for the weak. This was because the hundreds of millions of weaklings were the vast ocean that supported the strong on their voyages. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. Give the weak a single spark and it could start a prairie fire. Suddenly, Jiang Tian calmly said, "Don't worry. If you go now, you'll just die and become a delicacy in the mouth of the demon god." A golden core servant accidentally obtained a piece of Tao accumulating tea tree. His cultivation soared and reached spirit severing. Iron Hand Saint obtained a green bronze cauldron made from supreme treasure metal. It's priceless. Crown Prince Qingtan of the Firefox Empire obtained an immortal bone dagger that can slay mighty figures and saints. The sect leader of the Thunder Yang sect, Yang Yongcheng, obtained the Taihao Divine Stone. It contains the essence of fire, and its price is comparable to that of a country. At this moment, some of the vanguard teams had already received news of supreme immortal materials and divine materials. The value of these immortal materials was immeasurable. Outside the canyon, one would only appear once in thousands or tens of thousands of years. It could rapidly increase one's cultivation base. In particular, it could increase the cultivation base of return to void stage cultivators. Even though he couldn't directly advance to the Dao integration stage, he would at least be able to advance by 1 or 2 minor levels. And how difficult was it to break through to the return to void stage? Many times, even after thousands of years of hard work, they still couldn't make a single step forward. When Lian Huahan heard Jiang Tian's grumbling and saw that Sage Qianma had really stopped the procession, she couldn't help but feel even more disgusted with Jiang Tian. This person was truly despicable and shameless to the extreme. With so many treasures, did he really want to monopolize them all? Sir, we have no other choice. Saint Qianma smiled bitterly. I'm not asking you to retreat. Jiang Tian leisurely said, that's right. We still have to resist the demon tide, but sharpening the knife won't delay the work of cutting firewood. Follow me and make some preparations. At least we can protect ourselves when the demon tide strikes. Fellow Taoist Qianma, don't be anxious. In my opinion, the demon tide won't erupt so soon. With that, he steered the flying boat and flew back the way he came. He didn't want to reveal the news about the 6 paths lotus tree. But after all, Saint Qianma had risked her life to save him. Lin Yang and the others were also fated with him for 2 lifetimes. How could Jiang Tian sit by and watch them die? Let's go. Eldest Princess Mou, Lin Hanqing, and the other leaders looked at each other and immediately followed Jiang Tian. Saint Qianma didn't hesitate and looked at Lian Huahan. Sec girl, let's go too. Senior Qianma, this person is just a stranger to us. His words might not be trustworthy. Lian Huahan firmly objected. This person hides his head and shows his tail. He doesn't dare to show his true face. His behavior is suspicious. He doesn't seem to be a good person and has ulterior motives. I think we still need to be vigilant and stay away from him. Sect girl, you worry too much. Saint Qianma shook her head gently and said with deep emotion, this person's future is limitless. His vision has surpassed the entire continent. He doesn't want to have a deep relationship with us, so he doesn't reveal his true identity. Although Lian Huahan disdained in her heart, she couldn't object. Besides, Iron Hand Saint Yang Yongchang and the others have already gone deep into the blessed land and taken the initiative. I'm worried that our sect will get nothing. Saint Qianma pondered for a while and nodded. Then we'll split into 2 groups. You take your disciples deep into the blessed land, and I'll take Hua Xiangrong and the others to follow this fellow Taoist. Speaking of this, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. It was strange that until now, she still hadn't figured out the origin and name of Jiang Tian. But after a short contact, she had an inexplicable trust in Jiang Tian. Lian Huahan glanced angrily at Huang Linger, who was on Jiang Tian's flying boat. She was very annoyed. This girl is getting more and more outrageous. She has no respect for her elders. She even left without reporting to me. I'll find a chance to kill her. Let's go. However, Lian Huahan was eager to get the treasure and didn't want to waste time on this matter. She led the disciples and left quickly. Seeing that Lian Huahan led the team deep into the blessed land, Jiang Tian was expressionless. He looked on coldly and didn't say anything. He, Kong Teichu, was not a good person. In fact, Lian Huahan was extremely hypocritical. On the surface, she was benevolent and virtuous, but in fact, she was extremely cold and cruel. She just regarded Huang Linger as a bargaining chip in the exchange of interests. Jiang Tian was already merciful not to kill her. Now, she was stubbornly pursuing her own way and seeking death. How could Jiang Tian stop her? Soon, Jiang Tian led the group back tens of thousands of miles. Everyone looked at each other suspiciously. Why did fellow Taoist Jiang bring us back here? This place was already a safe zone. There were no demonic creatures around. However, there were also very few natural treasures. However, they knew that Jiang Tian had his reasons for doing so, so they didn't ask. In the end, Jiang Tian landed on a gentle slope. This place was very ordinary. There was nothing unusual about it. There was very little demonic qi. The soil was yellowish instead of the dark demonic earth. It was similar to the outside world. Everyone's expressions were even more strange. They didn't know what Jiang Tian was trying to do. I've waited bitterly on this continent for more than 10 years for your rebirth. At this time, Jiang Tian walked slowly to an ordinary-looking cassia lotus tree with his hands behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the crown of the tree. His eyes were deep as he sighed with emotion. "With your help, you can help me reach the top of the divine transformation realm." Even though Jiang Tian had lived 2 lives, his heart was as hard as iron. He wouldn't change his expression even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. However, at this moment, his painstaking plan finally came to fruition. He couldn't help but be so excited that his hands trembled slightly. Chapter 2051. In fact, when Jiang Tian entered the critical canyon, he had already confirmed the location of this tree through the records of his previous life. However, he remained calm and waited for the immortal light to erupt from the depths of the canyon to lure everyone over. Otherwise, once it was discovered, all the sages would snatch it. Fellow Taoist, isn't this? Seeing how excited Jiang Tian was, Saint Qianma could not help but ask, "Do you think this is the cassia lotus tree?" Jiang Tian could not help but laugh. How strange. Saint Qianma's divine sense spread out and her heart skipped a beat. Because the surroundings of the tree were especially quiet, what was fascinating was that this seemed to be a safe harbor. There was actually a deer wandering on the grassland, carefree and without any worries. In the small river that looked like a jade belt, the white crane drank and pecked at ease, elegantly and leisurely combing its feathers. The flowers were in full bloom and the birds and beasts were not demonized. There seemed to be no danger and no killing. Within a few hundred miles, it did not fit in with the entire canyon. It was like heaven and hell. Saint Qianma was familiar with this scene. What was truly shocking was that from the entrance of the canyon, the demonic qi was actually 10 times denser than this area. In other words, this area was peaceful not because it was closer to the mainland, but because of other reasons. This is a pure land. Could it be because of the cassia lotus tree? But this is clearly a mortal tree? Saint Qianma was slightly stunned. This is not the cassia lotus tree, but the 6 paths lotus tree. The 6 paths cassia lotus tree is the stem, but the branches are connected to an immortal lotus. Jiang Tian looked at the crown of the tree and could not help but sigh. The combination of 2 immortal plants and immortal flowers is very similar to the cassia lotus tree in the mortal world. Back then, that mighty being was wise and far-sighted. When he planted the 6 paths cassia lotus tree to suppress the demonic creatures, he guessed that one day, the 6 paths cassia lotus tree would be corroded by the demonic creatures and exhaust itself. Therefore, he planted an immortal lotus seed here and connected it to the roots of the 6 paths cassia lotus tree as a second layer of protection. In fact, it was even his final trump card. However, when the subimmortal tree of 6 paths celestial osmanthus collapsed, a vast amount of spiritual qi would be poured into the celestial lotus, nourishing its growth and strengthening, blocking the invasion of demonic qi and protecting the safety of the continent. Indeed, there are some details that are different from the ordinary cassia lotus tree. It has a natural Tao, and it has a hint of the heavens. Saint Qianma looked at the branches and leaves carefully and even the tiniest patterns. Suddenly, she felt a sense of calmness. That feeling was very mysterious. His mind and body became lighter, as if he could fly up and leave this world, straight into the vast starry sky, the 9 heavens deity realm. But why is there no celestial light or auspicious aura? Saint Qianma asked suspiciously. If we don't encounter any monsters, this item won't show its might. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Suddenly he took out a small bottle. With a flick of his finger, a stream of demonic blood rushed out from the bottle. This demon blood was the blood of a demon beast that Huang Linger and Sima Tu had casually killed when they were chasing after the flaming red toad. The demonic blood was already extremely thick. Following his divine sense, strange runes were drawn on the ground one after another. There were more and more of these runes and they gradually formed a chapter that surrounded the 6 paths lotus tree. Everyone was surprised when they saw this. They had never seen or heard of these runes before. However, it seemed to be very profound and obscure. Every word seemed to have come from a more advanced civilization. These are Immortal Seal Runes. Saint Qianmo's heart skipped a beat as her beautiful eyes widened in disbelief. Immortal seal runes were very rare in this world. They came from the 9 heavens. Among the founding ancestors of the Luang sect, there was one who was obsessed with runes and charms. He left behind a large number of ancient books everywhere, including stone rubbing, stone inscriptions, stone carvings, metal runes, and so on. Saint Qianmo had once seen the drawings of a few immortal seal runes in one of his most precious ancient books. Of course, this ancestor was not sure, but he thought that it was very likely to be immortal seal runes. And now, Saint Qianmo felt that the runes written by Jiang Tian were very similar to the ones she saw in the past. I underestimated him. He is not someone from this world, but the reincarnation of a powerful being from the 9 heavens. At this moment, Jiang Tian's back view was even more mysterious and unpredictable in Saint Qianmo's heart. In fact, Saint Qianmo had guessed correctly. Jiang Tian had written the immortal seal runes. The items from the immortal world were very intelligent. They were said to have spirits and could communicate with the immortal seal runes. The immortal seal runes contained Jiang Tian's consciousness. When it merged with the 6 Paths lotus tree, a strange scene happened. Silently, the tree trunk suddenly emitted auspicious colors and immortal light. It was beautiful, mysterious, and peaceful. It really is the immortal tree. When everyone saw this, their minds immediately surged and they were extremely shocked, and they almost cried out in surprise. Shoo, quiet. However, they immediately realized that Jiang Tian was using the immortal seal runes to communicate with the immortal tree. It was similar to a kind of prayer and sacrifice to obtain its blessings and blessings. Of course, they could not disturb him. In an instant, many cultivators within a radius of 10 miles were motionless like clay statues. They did not make any sound. Everyone held their breaths and restrained their dermic powers. They stared at Jiang Tian as he wrote the runes to communicate with the immortal tree. Then, an even more delightful scene happened. On the tree trunk, branches grew rapidly. Moreover, they were completely different from the previous branches. These new branches were as white as jade and crystal clear. At first glance, people would think that they were newly born bones. Not only the color and texture, but also the shape. They really looked like the bones of humans and beasts. It was a little creepy, but there was also a mysterious and holy feeling. It was as if the sound of the great Tao could be heard. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. This tree was truly miraculous. It was simply like a god. At the moment when the crowd was dumbstruck, one of the branches extended out like an arm. One of the branches was like a finger, and it came into contact with Jiang Tian's finger. It seemed to be confirming Jiang Tian's identity. Immediately after, pink and white flower buds bloomed on the bone-like branches. After the flower buds bloomed, everyone realized that they were lotus flowers. They were 6-petaled lotus flowers. Each petal was the size of a bamboo hat and emitted waves of light. They were crystal clear and surrounded by auspicious qi. The fragrance flowed and spread out. When these multicolored lights and propitious vapors enveloped everyone felt as if they were floating in the air, their entire bodies feeling very comfortable. At this moment, everyone felt a close connection with heaven and earth, with nature, and with the great Tao. It was as if they had become the master of this world. They were recognized by nature and resonated with the great Tao. In short, their bodies seemed to have abundant and irresistible power. It was as if they could break this continent with a punch. They were also extremely energetic. Their divine senses were unprecedentedly sharp and vast. The whole world was more real and clearer than before. Their souls were very lively. All kinds of negative emotions were gone. Peace and joy filled their hearts. They were even full of ambition and hope. It was as if there were endless possibilities. Of course, the one who had the biggest reaction was Huang Linger, who had the Yi-Wood spiritual body. Countless rays of auspicious light and multicolored light poured into her head. Even the ground surged with auspicious light and auspicious colors, completely enveloping her, turning into 5-colored clouds that were brilliant and elegant. The place she was in was like the holy land of immortals. At this moment, She was like a blooming immortal lotus. In an instant, her skin was crystal clear like jade. Immortal light soared into the sky, overshadowing everything around her. Chapter 2052. The sound of Tao echoed around Huanglinger. The sound of Tao was very soft, like a flower bud blooming, like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon and spreading its wings. It was peaceful and quiet, but there was also a kind of vigorous vitality. When the soft sound of Tao reached everyone's ears, it was like a morning bell, shaking everyone's heart and bringing them closer to the laws of Tao. At this moment, Huanglinger cleansed herself with the supreme immortal light and auspicious qi. She was really like an immortal, peerless, and unparalleled. At the very least, she was like a celestial being right now. She was invulnerable to all spells, untainted by all filth, untainted by even a speck of dust, and flawless. She was like a celestial being from the 9 heavens. Huanglinger also understood that Jiang Tian was guiding her fortuitous opportunity to help her break through. And this opportunity was too rare and precious. It was called an immortal opportunity. Not only was it rare in the divine origin world, it was also rare in the core area of the central galaxy, the legendary territory of the 9 celestial sects. Therefore, she focused her mind and closed her eyes, eliminating all unnecessary thoughts. She opened her body and let the immortal light and spirit qi from the 6 paths lotus tree enter her body and cleanse her. And everyone was shocked to see that Huanglinger's cultivation was rising. From level 3 to level 4, level 5, level 6, she went all the way until she reached the late stage, perfected, and broke through to the soul formation stage. And she was still going up as if there was no end to it. Everyone even felt that. Her leveling up was not like an increase in cultivation, but an evolution in the level of life. It was like a cell evolving into an animal, an ape evolving into a Homo sapiens. There was a qualitative change. Of course, this was not an illusion. This was because her constitution was also improving. She had become an immortal grade nascent soul, and from there, she had become a divine transformation realm cultivator. Damn, this leveling up is as easy as drinking water. It's indeed the deity tree. The effect of the immortal qi is so terrifying. It's like being reborn. At this moment, everyone was shocked and screamed in their hearts. Countless people were envious. Even Saint Qianma was shocked. At this moment, she finally realized how terrifying Jiang Tian was. Whether it was his strength or his experience, they were both hard to come by. At this moment, she also understood that the relationship between Jiang Tian and Huanglinger must be very deep. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Jiang Tian had previously said that if the Luo Ying sect was faced with a calamity, he would lend a helping hand. But it was only once. That was because Lian Huahun was too heartless towards Huanglinger. She only treated her as a bargaining chip for the marriage alliance and did not cultivate her sincerely. If Lian Huahun valued Huanglinger a little more, Jiang Tian would definitely protect the Luo Ying sect for 10,000 years, or even 100,000 years. However, it was too late to say anything now. Lian Huahun was too short-sighted and too utilitarian. Gradually, Huanglinger's cultivation progress slowed down. In the end, it stopped at the 3rd level of the semigod realm and stopped moving. Let's stop here. At this moment, Jiang Tian scanned with his divine consciousness and saw that the nascent soul had become a god and the spirit embryo had turned into a divine treasure. Moreover, it was an immortal grade divine treasure and a god. At this moment, her divine treasure was like a lotus petal, layer upon layer, including a god that was like a fairy in a flower. It was beautiful and moving. Huanglinger cried tears of joy. She had actually reached the semigod realm. This was a kind of extreme sublimation. It was not only her. Mou, Fang Jinlong, Lin Yang, Lin Hanqing, Fang Gouyu, the rest of the people's cultivation had also increased by more than 1 level. Even their grades had increased. All of them were overjoyed and were deeply grateful to Jiang Tian. They bowed deeply. This was like giving them a new life. Especially the disciples of Saint Qianma. Speaking of which, They had nothing to do with Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian had joined temporarily as a servant. They had met by chance, but Jiang Tian had given them such a great opportunity. Immediately after, Jiang Tian calmly accepted their respect without saying a word. Then, with a calm expression, he wrote another immortal seal chapter with the fiend blood, prayed and communicated with the 6 paths lotus tree. Suddenly, the tree was quiet for a while. Suddenly, the branches shook and lotus flowers fell. At this moment, the world was very quiet. Only the sound of the falling flowers could be heard. They were bright and clear like jade. The petals danced in the air and a fragrance spread out, flying into the pure land. Soon, there was an extra petal in everyone's hand. It was as if it had a spirit. There were no more and no less. At this moment, everyone was shocked and in awe. This tree was not a demon, but it had a spirit. This was an authentic immortal tree. It was too magical. Jiang Tian spoke for the first time. Everyone, drip a drop of blood on the lotus petal in your hand. He panted and seemed to be a little tired. Writing an immortal seal was originally a very tiring thing. This time he wrote 2 chapters in a row. Although the immortal tree and the immortal puppet were naturally sensitive to fiend blood and he could write briefly without using Dharma power, it was still very tiring. No one dared to be negligent. Even Saint Qianma dripped a drop of blood on the petal. And without exception, the drop of blood was absorbed the moment it landed on the petal. At this time, Jiang Tian sat cross-legged under the tree and said lazily, "As long as you carry this lotus petal with you, you will be protected by the immortal light and can kill soul formation fiend beasts and fiend generals 1 or 2 times. You have 2 choices now. 1. Enter the depths of the canyon and explore for treasures. Secondly, protect me while I cultivate. I want to remind you that the road ahead is dangerous. You may not get anything or even lose your life. After all, although the lotus petal is strong, it has already left the trunk. The immortal light is limited and the number of times you can kill it is limited. Protect me. Wait until I step into the divine transformation realm. In this canyon, I can be invincible and kill everything. By then, if you follow me, are you afraid that you won't get anything?" As soon as Jiang Tian finished speaking, eldest Princess Mou was the first to express her stance. All the cultivators of the Eastern Empire are willing to protect Senior. We will not hesitate to sacrifice our lives. Saint Qianma frowned and asked, "Fellow Taoist, you want to use this tree to advance? Will it consume the life of this tree?" At this moment, she had already guessed the truth. This 6 paths lotus tree was the last barrier against the demonic creatures. If it was eaten by Jiang Tian, then the demonic creatures and fiend generals would also drive straight in and be unstoppable. Only the human cultivators could rush forward one after another and form a steel wall with their flesh and blood to stop the attack. However, that would mean that countless human cultivators would die. Of course, it will consume a lot of energy. Jiang Tian took out a wine pot and took a sip of fruit wine. "Sigh, this tree was born too early. It's too young. I have a big appetite. I'm afraid I'll eat it until it's half dead." Saint Qianma trembled slightly and said, "Once this tree is damaged, I'm afraid the demon tide will be unstoppable. Do you have a plan to deal with the demon tide?" "Of course." Jiang Tian exhaled a mouthful of wine. Only 2 words fell, but he seemed very confident and certain. Saint Qianma's expression changed rapidly. Obviously, many thoughts flashed through her mind in an instant, and the ideological struggle was extremely intense. After a few seconds, Saint Qianma took a deep breath and said, "That's right. Fellow Taoist, I'll trust you this time." Immediately, she turned to look at all the disciples and said loudly, "All disciples, set up camp and arrange the battle formation to protect fellow Taoist Jiang." "Yes." Hua Xiangrong and many other disciples responded with a stern expression. They landed around the 6 paths lotus tree and set up the formation. Orders and prohibitions were strictly followed. Although Saint Qianma was not the sect master, she was a woman of her word. She treated people and things with sincerity. All the disciples respected her from the bottom of their hearts. We will also protect fellow Taoist. Princess Mou also gave the order. All the cultivators of the Eastern Empire were armed and guarded around Jiang Tian like the most loyal guards. This Six Paths lotus tree was priceless. It was fine if it was not discovered, but once it was discovered, there would definitely be giants coming to fight for it. And Jiang Tian was at the critical moment of breaking through. He was the most vulnerable and could easily die. Chapter 2053. Thank you, everyone. Jiang Tian clasped his hands together and said. Then he walked to the Six Paths lotus tree step by step and took out a piece of top-grade crystal. The crystal contained traces of immortal spiritual energy. It was obvious that it was of a very high grade. In the years he spent in the Eastern Empire and the 10 years he spent as a transcendent mortal, Jiang Tian didn't just walk down the path of a transcendent mortal. Instead, he collected countless immortal crystals in preparation for his breakthrough to the divinity transformation realm. The immortal crystals were crystal clear and gave off thousands of rays of light. They floated in the air and looked very magical. Under Jiang Tian's will, they landed around the Six Paths lotus tree and formed an irregular and strange pool. After inspecting for a while, Jiang Tian found that the arrangement of the crystals was correct. He then walked into the pool and sat down with his legs crossed. Following a special pattern, he placed many immortal herbs and godly materials in the pool. They were all very valuable. How strange. Does this fellow cultivator want to take a bath? Making a pool? Sima too rubbed his chin and was confused. Everyone was also confused and did not know what Jiang Tian was doing. Why did he use such luxurious crystals with immortal spiritual energy to make a bath? Dragon transformation pool? Suddenly, Saint Qianma took a closer look and could not help but exclaim. This was a kind of formation knowledge, but it was very profound and mysterious. It was said that it came from the immortal world. Its name, Dragon Transformation Pool, was derived from the words, when a fish leaps over the dragon gate, it will transform into a dragon. This pool was very magical. It was said that if a loach was placed in it, it would transform into a real dragon. At this moment, Jiang Tian closed his eyes and thought for a while. Then he suddenly opened his eyes and used his blood essence to draw immortal seal runes. It was different from when he used his demonic blood to draw immortal seal runes. At this moment, Jiang Tian's face was serious and he seemed to be struggling. He gritted his teeth and every word he said was very powerful. These immortal seal runes that were drawn with his blood essence quickly formed a prayer and wrapped around the Six Paths lotus tree. The prayer text turned into blood-red specks of light. They seemed to have fused into the Six Paths lotus tree, but they also seemed to have been absorbed by the tree. However, the Six Paths lotus tree did not react at all. Not even a single petal fell from the tree. The Six-Path lotus tree, pure and untainted, above the heavens, pure and unparalleled. It cleanses my mortal body, cleanses my mortal bonds, and ascends to the heavens, transcends mortality and becomes a god. Jiang Tian's eyes were sharp as he silently chanted and prayed to communicate with the Six Paths lotus tree. All of a sudden, the earth gushed divine spring. Streams of milky white spring water gushed out from the tree roots and tree trunks. This was the tree sap. It was milky white in color, as if it was jade marrow. It flickered with fluorescent light. Flowers fell from the sky, and the petals fell from the sky. Many six-path lotus flowers were sparkling and translucent. They carried dense immortal spiritual energy as they floated down beside Jiang Tian. The fragrance was strong, making one feel refreshed. At this moment, all types of crystals, precious metals, and immortal crystals blossomed with precious light. Multicolored light flowed about, and 7 colors curled about. It was extremely divine. As for Jiang Tian, at this moment he finally started to transform. He broke away from his mortal body and broke through to the soul formation stage. He sat in the dragon transformation pool. His body suddenly straightened, and his bones rubbed against each other, giving off a crackling sound. His originally stooped body instantly became as tall and straight as a mountain. He had a dignified appearance. Everyone was shocked to discover that his aura had also changed greatly. He broke away from his mortal body and broke away from the mortal world. In an instant, he became divine and ethereal, as if he could look down on the heavens and the 10,000 worlds. At this moment, his black hair danced in the night wind. His bright eyes were as clear as a spring. His dark and old skin became as clear as jade. The lines of his face were gentle and perfect, with a kind of perfect divinity. In an instant, Jiang Tian turned from a dispirited and lonely middle-aged man into a peerless and otherworldly young cultivator. He was like an immortal that had descended to the mortal world. He was shrouded in light, and his white robe was otherworldly. This is the benefit of going further on the path of becoming immortal. The further you go, the more transcendental you will be in the soul formation stage. The higher you go. At this moment, Saint Qianma saw this scene and exclaimed in shock. What if you don't go far enough as a mortal? At this moment, Mou, Lin Yang, Fang Gouyu and the other cultivators of the Eastern Empire, as well as Hua Xiangrong and the other elite disciples of the Luoying sect, all surrounded her. At this moment, Huang Linger couldn't help but ask. Going from the nascent soul stage to the soul formation stage is indeed a huge bottleneck in cultivation. From then on, you will enter the later stage of cultivation. Saint Qianma said, the soul formation stage is like a kite released by a child, and the soul formation stage is like tying a string to the kite and holding it in the child's hand. This kite can naturally fly with the wind, but the prerequisite is that there must be a string. Otherwise, it won't be able to control the direction. It's like a fallen leaf in the wind. Although it can be blown high for a while, it will eventually fall to the ground. Everyone nodded, as if they had understood something. Saint Qianma said earnestly, the soul formation stage is just an imitation of the gods, but it is not a real god. We are still mortals. Our cultivation and abilities can't reach that level. But when you control the great Tao of heaven and earth, you will always have a feeling that you are a god in the vast world. At this time, it's easy to lose your Taoist heart, lose your true self, and look down on mortals. In the end, you will go mad and go against the great Tao of heaven and earth. But if you are a soul formation stage abyss, it won't be like this. Always remember that I am still a mortal. I won't lose my mind and I won't be arrogant. Naturally, I won't go mad and pass the soul formation stage. I will go further to the void return and Tao reunion stage. As soon as she finished speaking, Jiang Tian's side changed again. At this moment, the array of the dragon transformation pool was activated. The milky white tree sap was boiling and dense, deity chi was soaring to the sky. Divine light broke the clouds and the world was blazing, making people unable to open their eyes. What's that? It seems to be deity chi. At this moment, the cultivators in the critical boundary valley all turned their heads and looked in the direction of the Six Paths lotus tree in shock. Could it be that an extraordinary deity material has appeared? Let's go. Let's go and have a look. Some of the cultivators looked at each other and then flew in this direction with determined expressions. Although treasures had appeared in the depths of the critical boundary valley and they had indeed gained a lot along the way, they had encountered more and more demons and demon generals, and they were getting stronger and stronger. But now, in a safer place, there was an even stronger deity chi erupting, which inevitably made people think that there were deity material and deity material there. If it was true, this would naturally be the first choice. After all, it was safer here. Lian Huahun, who had already gone deep into the critical boundary valley, had encountered many demons and was covered in wounds. Demonic chi lingered around her body. At this moment, she turned her head and looked in the direction of the Six Paths lotus tree with confusion and suspicion in her eyes. Could it be that the strange cultivator wasn't lying to me? Is there really a treasure trove of deities and deities there? However, she immediately shook her head and still didn't believe it. She led the disciples deeper into the critical boundary valley. Rumble. When Jiang Tian was bathed in the tree sap of the dragon transformation pool and Jiang Tian had absorbed enough deity chi, the essence chi in his body suddenly boiled. His chi and blood rushed into the sky like a dragon, directly turning into a dragon-shaped chi pillar. It split the heavens and the earth, parting the demonic chi clouds, and piercing through the heavens and earth like a peerless sword. At that moment, even the thick and evil demonic chi and deity chi and blood were torn apart by Jiang Tian's dragon-shaped chi and blood. It couldn't even withstand a single blow. At this moment, everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. What kind of physique was that? Could it be in deity-grade nascent soul? Could in deity-grade physique be so strong? He was only in the nascent soul realm, but he could produce such powerful and vigorous chi and blood. It was as if a true dragon of the 9 heavens had awakened. At this moment, Saint Qianma noticed that Jiang Tian's spirit embryo had already transformed into a deity treasure. Jiang Tian's deity treasure was too majestic and vast. It was a deity treasure that flowed with deity light. Among them, the chaotic 9-orifice nascent soul was also rapidly evolving into a deity treasure. It was like a baby that was growing healthily, becoming a young man, stronger and more powerful. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.